Welcome to the Warriors and Wardens podcast, formerly the Origin Canine podcast. We are dedicated to sharing the lived experience of military and first responder communities from Australia and around the world. I'm your host, Tom Brown. Enjoy the show. Alrighty, g'day guys and girls. Welcome to another episode of the Warriors and Wardens podcast, formerly Origin Canine podcast. And today is my first online podcast with Tony Sanborn from Arizona. How you going, bro? Welcome to the potty, mate.
Hey, thanks, Tom. Thanks for having me.
All good, dude. And mate, for people listening and for the people who are going to listen to this, you and I were introduced by Kelvin Boswell. He was also a guest on the potty, the old Origin Canine podcast, which people can still find. You just scroll down past episode 1 of Warriors and Wardens. But yeah, man, introduced us. We've hooked up, done a couple of things together, professionally, work-wise, obviously. And then the rest is history, man. Here you are.
Yeah, no, you've been one of the better contacts we've ever gotten, I think, just as an association out here in Arizona, and how we delivered your message to the whole Canine group, and then how you and I have carried on a friendship. And thank goodness for Signal and all these good apps that are out there to keep communication halfway across the planet. So that's pretty cool. But always enjoyed your friendship and really appreciate you having me on.
Nah, mate, I appreciate everything you did for me as well. And I'm actually working on something at the moment based on, obviously, Ryder working with you, so I've got some new stuff. But anyway, so mate, I want to rip into you and your life, Tony, and I want to start at the start, mate. So if you want to, dude, hit me with a bit of childhood, man. What was life like growing up? And I want to hear about young Tony and how that turned into who you are, man.
Yeah, I've spent more time on young Tony lately. It's interesting. I never thought much about young Tony until I hit a point in my life where I was struggling a little bit, which we may get into later, but it really tried to unlock kind of what happened in childhood. But not to say that I didn't have a great life. I had a wonderful life, but grew up in Los Angeles, California. I'm one of 4 kids. I'm the second to oldest, the oldest boy. I had a father that was military and then was in the sheriff's department for a short period of time when I was a young man, and then owned his own construction company, and then a mother whose house I'm at now, getting ready for Sunday dinner with the family, which is a tradition of ours every Sunday, who is an incredible mom, extremely smart, gifted, hardworking, as both my parents were. And I think that was the overriding theme of my childhood was hard work. You can never get out hustled. There's people that have different ways of getting ahead and maybe succeeding, but one thing you control is always the effort you put out, and that was instilled at a young age, was work your butt off, and if you want it, you can get it. And so that was childhood, and growing up, half my childhood there was fantastic. I mean, we had a little bit of a good life being close to the beach, but the neighborhood wasn't great. Ultimately, when I was about 11 years old, maybe 12, it was time to move to Arizona. My mom had been recruited by a healthcare company out here, but also they had seen just how their neighborhood that they grew up in, where we lived, had degraded. And it's funny. I tell a funny story to close friends about being in contact with a neighbor friend. His cousin was in a gang, and he started coming around the neighborhood and hanging out and telling us how cool it was, which it turns out is the early part of the indoctrination for getting into gangs. But that was a big part of that neighborhood, was everybody was a member of some gang and was claiming, to be a part of that group, and then the violence that comes with it, obviously. So my parents realized at that point that it was time to find a better place to raise kids. So we packed it all up and moved out to Arizona and found a whole new type of childhood where, the rules in LA were don't leave the cul-de-sac because there's nothing but danger at the end of the street. We came to Arizona and it was totally different. It was go out and play, hang out in the desert, chase snakes, run from coyotes. Like, it was just wild. And it was freedom, and it was great. And, that was a good time, to be young and just be out and having fun. And, ended up, going to Horizon High School. Never really got into sports too much, laid very low as a kid. I think kind of kept to myself and was a natural introvert, which I know might kind of shock you or other people listening that know me, because at some point in my life, probably around 19, maybe 20 years old, I knew I wanted to be a police officer, and I was going to work my butt off and accomplish my goal. But then I realized that being an introvert and being afraid of failure, it didn't vibe with being a police officer. I was going to have to force myself to get out and fail and then learn and then fail some more and then learn some more and then eventually get what I wanted. So that was a big turning point in my life, was learning how to turn that part off and put myself out there and eventually accomplish all the goals that I had set out to accomplish. And became a police officer in Scottsdale at the age of 22. My goal was 21, but they were on a hiring freeze, so 22 was when I started. Spent about 5 years in patrol, working in Scottsdale, and then for the past, so 22 years now on the police department total, but the past about 17 years or so in the Canine unit, and I'm currently the trainer for the Scottsdale PD Canine unit, and I'm also the president of ALECA. There on the shirt, the logo, which is the Arizona Law Enforcement Canine Association.
I got your shirt on and I got your hat on. I made sure I put them on for
There you
this
go.
one.
Good. We're proud of our swag. I think we do pretty good in that department.
Mate, you guys Americans, you just do swag like no one else. Like I don't think we even use that word here, or it means something different. It's like a sleeping bag. But mate, the like at that the desert dog trials, dude, the show in that hangar and the merch you guys had was out of control, out of control. It
Thank
was
you.
like a full time gig, mate. Just you guys selling shirts and hats and coins and patches and stickers and stuff. It's crazy.
We try to keep the lights on just by selling cool shirts and hats, like that, and a lot of begging of big corporate donors. So yeah, it's all right.
Yeah. So, dude, there's a lot to extract out of that man, especially obviously you and I have had some sort of brief chats about stuff later in life, how it's impacted by childhood, and I'm big on this, right? Helping people realise that sort of stuff, and not that it's necessarily trauma, but it's very impactful what happens to you and how you learn as a child. Do you mind going into that a little bit about? We don't need to hear about how your psych sessions go, man, if you don't want. But
Yeah.
I just want you to get your view on, how your childhood started to impact you later on in life.
No, no, that part's important, and I know that's a big part of our connection and the things that, well, the whole reason we brought you out to Arizona, which you did an outstanding job connecting with our guys and talking about it, is that really a key part of normalizing having issues, right? And normalizing that people are dealing with stuff so that the guy next to you feels like, okay, I can talk about this. So yeah, I'm happy to open up some of the things that I've dealt with, because I'm sure that some people will find some commonality in that when they listen. But yeah, as a young man, my father, good man, hardworking, but complex. He's since passed on from pancreatic cancer years back, but ended up at the end having a good relationship with him. But before then, there was a lot of complexity to that, and he struggled with PTSD coming out of Vietnam, and he used to deal with things kind of the old-fashioned way, like just pour some alcohol on it, and that's the best way to mask it, which I know everybody who has ever dealt with something has probably felt the shame of that, of not dealing with it the healthy way, and he didn't. So it became this childhood that was a little bit filled with fear, I think, knowing that, as he came home, always being concerned of what kind of mental state he was in. I got really in tune to reading him and reading the nights that I knew that he would probably struggle and deal with his PTSD in the wrong way. And, just to add a little more adventure to it, he suffered from really, really traumatic flashbacks. And there'd be times where, I'd be a young man, maybe 7 or 8 years old, and watching him slowly slip into this flashback. And he could have conversations with me and call me his son and call me by my name, but also be in the jungle in Vietnam, and also be talking about where to watch out for danger and watch out behind that bush and be careful, there's a tripwire, and really seeing these things in his mind. Like he could see them, and pointing at things as though he saw them. And so it was just, as a young man, I think, trying to wrap my head around that and trying to figure out what was happening, but then also being concerned and nervous, for my safety, my brothers and sisters and their safety, my mom, And I think as a very young man, I started to think that I had some sort of responsibility to try and keep my family safe, and that maybe, the person that was my primary protector, my safety, which would have been my father, was also probably the greatest threat to me. And so that's been part of that journey of figuring out and unlocking some of the things that I dealt with as a young man that sort of made me who I am today. And uh, it was enlightening to figure out that those experiences when you're young, how they come back later on and kind of help form who you are. And so, yeah, that was an interesting time to have him deal with that. And then, of course, with alcoholism comes everything else. There's the the abusive side of it that you have to deal with, and to some extent, I give some grace there to my dad because I know how he was raised, and I'm not sure how this will connect with the folks out there in Australia, but there's the culturally, I think, as a kid growing up, and I know from prior generations that corporal punishment and physical punishment of your kids was pretty common. There was always a way to cross a line. Not to say that there isn't, right? But certainly, taking a belt or, a stick or whatever was nearby and getting a swat on the butt as your punishment for whatever you did wrong, that was legitimate, right? And now I think we see maybe a little change happening here. And I could say for certain as a police officer, I see a change for what's considered normal now when it comes to punishment. So yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of let's sit down and talk about it or how could you have done that better? And it was more just, well, if you screwed up, then you're going to pay the price. And for people who are dealing with things that are complex, emotions that are complex, I don't know if my dad really had the bandwidth to be able to sit down and have a conversation about it. There were times that he did, but also it was easier just to say, well, let's get you a punishment that fits the crime. Um, Looking back, I think maybe some of those punishments maybe didn't quite fit the crime. Then maybe that was just some of his own stress and his own trauma coming through. Um, but either way, it turned me into a person that was very nervous and very, um, I think, uh, searching for safety, and I think that helped kind of form who I was later and wanting to be a protector and help keep people safe. I think that definitely had an influence on that. Um, so I wouldn't, and don't get me wrong, I wouldn't replace my childhood for anything, because my parents were also very loving. So not at all do I want to say that I have resentment towards them. I just understand now sort of what helped make me who I am today, both good and bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, man, and that's interesting too because I was going to ask you about the violence, but you sort of obviously you've done some work on this, mate. You've honed in on the safety aspect and the uncertainty, and then the provider, the role of your dad, that sort of stuff. Mate, I think people like us can handle violence. You know what I mean? We can handle even the PTSD or the other stuff. I think it's the emotional acceptance around that we struggle with the most, man. Shame, guilt, all those sort of things,
Mm-hmm.
those wonderful things that sort of keep on giving. And if you don't pay attention, you can pass it on again. So yeah, man, I appreciate that, dude, and I think that was a good thing that I wanted to point out in your like your sort of childhood summary there, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it is. You're right. And yeah, this is it's I'm glad we're doing this. This is the first time I think that I'll make a lot of the things that I dealt with as a young man public knowledge. I've spent the past 3 or 4 years really trying to find solutions to the things I struggle with today as an adult, and unlocked a lot of really good information and found different ways that work and things that didn't work for me. I'm sure we'll get into all of that, but it's an interesting position for me as such a private person and genuinely an introvert who forces himself to be an extrovert. Uh, that I'm now opening up and discussing this with the whole world and whoever chooses to tune in. So this is maybe therapeutic too. This will be fun.
Mate, it is. I reckon it is, mate, and that's partly why I do the podcast, bro. Because I think most of our people, mate, we're not good at passing on the knowledge that we should pass on. At least when you're in the agency. But when you get out, it's
Yeah.
a bit of a different story. But that's kind of why I do it. So, um, But dude, you spoke about there. You were talking about wanting to be a protector and stuff, and I've got this big thing about beliefs and counter beliefs, right? So maybe you've got this belief that there wasn't safety, but the reality is that you need safety, so you still go and seek it.
Hmm.
So yeah, hit me with why law enforcement specifically? Why not the military, for example?
Yeah, I think the only reason I turned left instead of right when it came to that point in my life was honestly because of my wife. I mean, we met in high school, and I had a dream that I just wanted to go to the military and fly helicopters. That was like my childhood dream, and I wanted to accomplish that first, and then I felt like after military service, I'd come home and then probably be a police officer. And I think she was just pushing so hard at the time to stay close and not to take off and travel the world and follow that part of my dream. And not to say that was in any way like again, no resentment towards her, because it was a joint decision. Her and I discussed it a lot back when I was around 17 or 18 years old. And ultimately I decided, yeah, you know what? Um, I thought that I can get started young, because the younger you start, the younger you can retire in police work out here. You can get that pension for the rest of your life. And I thought, shoot, man, if I start at 21, I'd be able to collect a pension at 41. If I'm done with all this, I could have a whole second career doing something totally different. That's a great option too. So why delay? I can forego that dream of going to the military. So I still get to accomplish, or I guess fulfill that part of me that wants to protect and wants to serve his community and wants to do something meaningful more than anything. That's what it really comes down to. Is my urge was, I wanted to get up every day and know that what I did had an impact on the world. I didn't want to just exist or be in a cubicle. I had little starter jobs like that growing up where I sat in a cubicle all day, and it made me crazy. I knew that wasn't my future. There was no way I was going into traditional business. So it was no doubt in my mind that it was going to be some form uh, of meaningful work that I had to do, whether it would have been military or police work. I needed to know that I was helping people and making an impact. And so, when it came time to choose, I chose stay close to home and get this career started and just go, balls to the walls, go after it, and then see what happens when I'm middle aged. If I want to switch up careers, I'll switch up careers. So.
Yeah, nice, bro. And what about, so I'm just going to dial it back for a second. So when you were growing up in California, what suburb was that, by the way?
I was near the Torrance area, but we were in Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles itself. We were in, I guess, what you would consider South LA is where we were.
Now, so I'm not overly familiar with LA itself. I know over in the west, I think, is like Compton, those
Hmm.
sort of areas. South is obviously, you've said, pretty rough. What sort of
Yeah.
neighborhoods would I know from around there, like from a movie or something, Inglewood or whatever?
So yeah, if you're thinking of Inglewood, we were 10 minutes, maybe 15 from Inglewood, and same about 10 minutes or so from Compton. So if you see those on a map, like uh I don't know if you remember the LA riots, and there was a scene that I kind of lives um in history now, in infamy, where uh the truck driver, I believe his name was Reginald Denny, was pulled from his truck at the start of the riots, like day one of the riots when they shut down one of the intersections. They pulled him out, and then he was beaten and eventually had a brick thrown at his head, and he went unconscious. And that was live on TV. And that clip is still out there. You can still see it. It was sort of like the one real famous clip of day one of the LA riots back in '92, I believe it was. And that was about 2 miles from my house where that happened. So that was sort of the idea of like kind of where we were, where our neighborhood was.
Wow, wow. Yeah, man. Yeah, and I thought you might have been in that area. Again, I don't know too much about LA, but that's pretty rough, man. And did you have interactions with law enforcement at that stage of your life, or you saw the other side, the gangs and the, don't go past the end of the street sort of stuff?
My parents did their best. They really tried hard to keep us away from that by keeping us close to the house. They knew that if we started to venture out into the neighborhood that surrounded my elementary school, for sure, where all my classmates lived, because I can remember probably five or so, maybe six of my classmates who would love to come to school and talk about their older brothers who were in gangs and talk about how cool they were, and all the cool things that they bring home and how they have the new Jordans and they're getting a car and, glorifying that whole lifestyle because that's the whole idea behind recruitment for it. And so I have vivid memories as a kid thinking of that and going, wow, that's super cool. And one of the moments where it all kind of came to a head in this glamorizing of, that kind of West Coast. This is, and again, think about the time that it was the early 90s. So West Coast gangster rap was just coming in, Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre and Warren G and like all those guys were just like, I was starting to listen to that as a kid thinking this stuff is so cool. The lifestyle is so cool. Tupac was coming out and, it was being glamorized. And then it didn't take long before you start to like meet people and then somebody starts coming around the neighborhood. Maybe your friend comes into the neighborhood, but then he brings his older brother who's in the gang. And then my parents, hardworking people, they were sun up to sunset and we were latchkey kids where we came home and a lot of times took care of dinner ourselves and had to manage, and so they would find out after the fact that so and so was in the neighborhood and hanging out, and they started to get very nervous and very scared about the influence that was encroaching because again it was don't leave the cul-de-sac, but now it was coming into the cul-de-sac even though I was being as good as I could be and staying close to home. And so as that whole process sort of started to evolve, I could tell that it was going to be I guess the best way to put it, I I glamorized it too much one day, didn't know mom was going to be home. I decided to wear baggy jeans that were sagging down off my butt, and then I saw that a cool look at the time was to wear a chain hooked to your belt loop. And a lot of guys hooked the chain to their belt loop, then hooked it to their wallet. That was a look. But me as a kid, I didn't know. So I just found an old choker chain from one of our dogs, and I hooked it to my belt loop to make it look like a chain just hanging off the side. And I'll never forget walking in the house, and my mom saw me, and she saw what I was wearing, and I said, "No, no, mom, it's cool. This is what all the kids are wearing. It's just a cool look." And she lost it. Dad wasn't home. He wasn't going to be home anytime soon. He was out busting his hump trying to provide for us. And she grabbed that chain and she straight up hit me with it and started yelling at me as I kind of cowered in the corner, saying, "Hey, do you know what they use this for? They use this to beat the crap out of people." And she's hit me with the chain and I'm screaming. And, I went from being this super cool kind of wannabe gangster tough kid to all of a sudden getting whipped by a chain in the corner by his mom and crying. So not so tough, I guess. But yeah, that was the last day I ever sagged my pants or wore a chain. But yeah, they made it very clear that that was kind of like a major tipping point. Like, okay, he's coming home wearing the gear. Like we still have to work. We can't be here. So this influence is coming. This is not a good place to raise kids anymore. And, California has many other challenges and had many challenges at the time, especially for, my folks. The construction industry was very volatile. There were years we had no money and we would get stories about how Santa sometimes has to miss certain houses. So, don't be upset if there's no presents. And I'd have holes in my shoes with my toes hanging out and getting clowned on by all the other kids. And there were years where dad would make good money, but mom was still trying to come up. So we grew up not having money while we lived in California, but a lot of that had to do with the volatility of the construction industry and my dad being the main provider. So take those two things together, and essentially they decided this is not a good place for us to be. Like we gotta go somewhere else. And when mom started getting recruited by other healthcare companies for healthcare administration, I mean that was good, steady, well paying jobs. And so the opportunity came up to move to Arizona, and you take in the influence of the crap neighborhood and the crappy economy, and they said, "Yeah, we're going." And that was where all my family was. Everybody lived there. All my mom's family, my dad's family, I think each of them had three generations in Southern California. And we packed up and left, and that was a big moment. But ultimately, obviously for the better. It was pretty brave and smart of them to get out of there.
Yeah, that's a hugely impactful decision, man. And I'm sure you're grateful that your parents had the foresight to be able to make that move. I mean, what a call to make, man. Watching the socio-political climate change in that tiny little area, and then be like,
Yeah.
no, we're gone. Yeah, that's good, man.
Yeah, I kept listening to Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, but I just had to do it in Arizona and quietly in my room where my parents couldn't hear.
It's funny, man. I watched that P Diddy doco
Oh, yeah.
on Netflix like a few weeks ago, and that was what it was talking about, East versus West, and Tupac and
Hmm.
that stuff. So that was fascinating, man.
Yeah.
Um, so, dude, when you moved to Arizona, did you move? Did you say you moved to Scottsdale?
Yeah, we did. So this was a different place. So Arizona and the whole Scottsdale, Phoenix area. I mean, it was really cool to move to a place where you were watching the growth happen. I remember driving around in California and the Los Angeles area and hearing my parents talk about, oh, I can't believe the development here, and I can't believe the new house is there. This all used to be a field that was a citrus field. And I thought, what are you talking about? Like, this is all city, just the city. And then we came out here and there was just wide open space, land, mountains, just wide open desert. It was great. And now we moved to Scottsdale initially, but where we moved to was actually right. The only thing that was up there was the Princess Resort and the TPC golf course, which is where we just had the Phoenix Open. And I don't know if you've ever seen images of the Phoenix Open and the whole 16th hole and all how people call that a bucket list item to come out to the Phoenix Open golf tournament. But that was all that was up there. And I used to go run around and play in the desert. And now I get to be that guy that drives around and says, oh, yeah, we used to hunt rattlesnakes out here. And I had a fort in those trees over there. And it's all buildings, it's all city. And so we came out here and it was just wild, wide open country and desert. And now, what, 30 some years later, I get to tell the stories about these roads never went through, these freeways weren't here. I get to be the old man telling my kids about it.
It's funny, man, when you watch that as a parent, things sort of go full circle, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I went through that similar sort of thing when I had kids, had to go back and address a few things from my childhood, but then just watching this whole thing play out again, but in a different way, it's fascinating, man.
Yeah.
And for the people listening, can you explain, so the Scottsdale area, my impression when I was there was that it was a bit of an upmarket area. It looked really nice when I was there. There was a lot of
Yeah.
cafes and businesses and shops and stuff.
You're absolutely right. It's a very well-to-do city. It's a very wealthy city. The Scottsdale area. There's a southern part of Scottsdale closer to the Tempe border. That is, it's not. I mean, it's grown and it's improved. 20 years ago when I started as a police officer, there was some lower economic areas that had crime, but they've since all been regentrified. Everybody's been pushed out that didn't have money because the real estate became popular, and now it's all, you know, $1 million homes. So it really is a really nice city, probably from border to border. But it's unique in the sense that we border other major cities that have high crime. Tempe on our southern border does okay. They have some areas that are that where we get a little overflow into our city. I think of some of the crime that comes over, and then we're next to the Salt River Indian Reservation, which has its own issues with violent crime that sometimes spills over. And then we border Phoenix, the big city, and obviously Phoenix has its fair share of violent crime too, and does spill over as well. But we're a destination city, so our crime is very transient. It comes into our city and it leaves our city. So to give you an idea of kind of how that works, the city's affluent, um, but we have one of the largest nightlife downtown nightlife areas, and so on the weekends, the population just in that one little square mile area, it increases tenfold, because there's really few apartments down there, but people flood into the city just to have fun and party, which means we get busy, right? Because once you bring that element of alcohol and lesser inhibitions, then you get some crime that comes with that. So we have a lot of our crime that comes into the city that they don't necessarily live there. So to give you an idea, like as part of the Canine unit, we're a member of our SWAT team, and so when we go serve our search warrants, if the crime occurred in our city, that is our crime. It's our investigation. And so we follow the investigation wherever it leads and ultimately find our suspect and then make the arrest. So we may um, spend half of our time, probably three-quarters of our search warrants, we don't do in our city. We'll follow the crime to where the suspect lives. And so we'll go to Phoenix, we'll go to Glendale, we'll go over to Mesa and all these other cities that are surrounding us where they live to go arrest them, because they came into our city to commit the crime. And, it depends on the time of day. We also have daytime burglaries that occur, residential. And then if you look at nights and weekends, it becomes more of a commercial burglary issue because we have very affluent, very well off, businesses that are in our city as well. And so that's just kind of an idea of, I guess, sort of the demographics and how the crime occurs in our city. But otherwise, you're right on. Like it is a very affluent, very well to do city, and a tourist destination for the most part.
Yeah, yeah. I remember driving along with Boz, and it was like a train track. We were driving along, and he said basically everything on that side is like kind of the bad neighborhood. Everything on
Hmm.
this side is a good neighborhood, which is strange, man, because we don't have that extremely obviously sort of dichotomous suburb kind of distribution like you guys have. It seems like in the States, at least in my estimation, since the few times I've been there, you might walk down the wrong street in the right neighborhood. But
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a bit different here, man. I feel like it's more like a bit hazy, if that makes sense. There's no line you cross, so to speak. But yeah,
Oh gosh, yeah, we could spend some time on that. The differences, I'm sure, um, between the U.S. and Australia when it comes to sort of the complexities of our crime. Um, I don't assume to know a whole lot about Australia and sort of how crime works out there, but I know I'm aware of sort of the reputation that the U.S. has in the world with our gun violence and our gun laws, and in Arizona, no exception. We have some of the most free gun laws anywhere. You can open carry on your hip. You can conceal carry if you're not a convicted felon, so you can conceal a firearm in your car on you, unless it's like posted as restricted. You can't take your gun into a certain place. You can carry your gun anywhere you want. So there's a lot of freedom here when it comes to guns. I know that's not always the case when you see the rest of the world. So I'm not sure how Australia is, for example, but yeah, we have a lot of freedom here when it comes to firearms, and I'm not so sure that even translates um, in the world as far as our gun violence. I'm not sure where we rank, but um, I know that people consider that when you're committing crimes in this state, that the person you're trying to victimize, may be carrying a firearm too. So, there's, I guess it depends on where you are on the political spectrum on that ideology. But I know for most cops and military types that would listen to this show, I think they would, for the most part, would agree. Like, yeah, let me have my gun. Let me go ahead and take care of myself and my family, and we'll see who comes out on top if you're going to try and victimize me, right? And that's sort of that Arizona mentality, I think.
yeah, yeah. And I think I sort of concur with that, man. Like very different down here in terms of gun ownership. But I like the way you guys do it in the States because I think that for the most part, minus the criminals, you guys do it pretty well. And I speak from experience. Sorry, my experience with all the cops and military people I work with and speak to and stuff over there because they are, highly competent, law-abiding citizens that carry their weapons for
Hmm.
the right reason. None of them I've ever known have ever shot anyone off duty.
Nope.
Yeah,
That's a rare occasion, but it's that old saying, right? You want I'd rather have my gun and not need it than need it and not have it. And so, and there's something about that. I think when bad guys are looking for victims, I think there's something to that, that sometimes you just don't look like a good victim, That's not always the case, but I think for the most part, the types that pay attention, the guys that are aware, that the police and military type that are always watching for that threat and always on alert, um, that stands out, I think, to bad guys, and they tend to, uh, not want to bring the fight to you. They go look for a different victim. So, and if everybody had that mentality, would we have any victims? I don't know. I don't know.
it's funny, man. So, dude, hit me with the law enforcement stuff, man. So, starting out,
Yeah.
Scottsdale PD, you said.
Hmm.
Yep. Hit me
Yeah.
with joining the PD, man, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, again, that was, to get back to some of the psychological side, I had to make a switch in life, and I wanted so bad to be a police officer. I knew I did. I knew it was my calling, which is, a big part of what I do now is recruitment, and I talk a lot to people about getting into this profession, which, by the way, I fully endorse. It's a great profession. I don't push anybody away from it, but I also tell people, ask yourself, do you feel like this is your calling? Because you got a lot of hard days. So you got to remember that this is what you were meant to do on those tough days. So it keeps you coming back, makes you not want to walk away from it. But that was my mentality, was like I wanted to follow what I felt was my calling, and I knew I had to switch gears. I couldn't be this person who wanted to just keep to himself and not be putting myself out there for failure. I knew that was going to be part of the process. And so, just after high school, I made a switch, and I started focusing on, exercise and uh, getting into the gym more and running more. And then, I got myself into a cadet program here in Scottsdale where I could learn about the profession to be sure it was what I wanted to do, and get out on ride-alongs and volunteer with the police department just to kind of get a closer look at what they do and make sure that I could do it, and I wanted it. And I just fell more in love. The more I got involved, the more I wanted to do it. So I was certain of what my path was going to be. And then academy comes up when I'm 22 years old, and most people talk about that being hard or, a challenge. Like, I loved every minute of it. Honestly, it was great. We were out there running every day, even the discipline. It was like, okay, I know what we're trying to accomplish here. And there's that, mental tear down process and the rebuilding process to kind of make you into someone who's capable of handling the stresses that come with the career. And I fully embraced it. I had a great time. Was introduced to some people in the academy to this day. I matter of fact, in the house now, having dinner, is a man that I call my brother, who I met in the academy. His name's Mario, and he works for Phoenix PD. So we were going to the academy together, and got to know him. He had nobody, just him and his wife out here, and we clicked right away. And now if you go look in the house and look on the walls, amongst all the pictures of us kids, at weddings and different events, is all the pictures of Mario, his wife, his kids, because they're part of the family. And so that became a lifelong friendship, so that was really cool. But yeah, so growing up and going through the academy and learning how to put myself out there and fail, and again, loving every minute of it, and then getting into field training, loved it, excelled through it. I don't recall, even looking back now, I don't recall really having any issues, and I never really struggled. I think I just enjoyed it and enjoyed the challenge, and um, got out of that field training, which is probably the most challenging part of the whole process, because you have someone sitting there in your passenger seat watching every move you make and taking notes, and wait, and it's honestly, um, it's a great descriptor for what you have to expect and what comes with police work, where you could do great all day, all week, right? 39 of your 40 hours, you could just do amazing and get everything right. And then one thing happens that you didn't do right, and career over. So it's like a little microcosm of how the career was going to be. And that's a lot of stress. And that's what law enforcement is knowing that you could be right 99 out of 100 times, but that one time that you screw up, it could mean your whole career, or it could mean death. It could mean the death of a partner, a friend, death of a victim. So it's very high stakes, high consequences. And I think that was something that I didn't really feel like I was stressed out about. I didn't want to run from it. I really kind of embraced it. And, kind of, it's interesting too, because getting back to some of that psychology from my childhood, going to some of these therapy sessions and these very intensive programs and learning more about how I operate, I have this thing where I keep very calm under stress. And so I was mentioning that to one of the psychologists, and we were talking about where that was formed. And essentially, they described it as the early childhood stress that I dealt with. It took my baseline very high. So now I sit high all the time. And this is probably something that a lot of your listeners, and I think you will relate to as well, Tom, is that I sit in this, my normal is at a very high stress level all the time. And so it's where I operate. It's where I live. And it's not good. It's not good long term. You shouldn't stay up there. But man, does it work great if you want to be a police officer. It's fantastic for that because, when the stress hits and things start getting very intense, I feel very at home. I feel very comfortable. And I never thought about it. I never trained to do it. I never practiced it. But, now being one of the trainers for the unit and trainers for the state, all we work on is this stress inoculation, right? Like we're constantly trying to set scenarios up, reality-based training. Let me make it as real as possible so we can induce stress and force you to calm down and make decisions. Like we train it and we work on it for those guys that need it. But for those, I think, that experienced trauma in their life, that have that, um, I guess, dysfunctional, dysregulated adrenaline system that sits at a high point all the time. Um, it's like that's where I like to be. I want to be in that space. I feel comfortable there. I don't feel any extra stress. I don't get shaky. I don't get um, tunnel vision. So yeah, it was interesting getting tested, going through the through academy and through field training, and just feeling totally comfortable as the stress level went up. And I never thought anything of it at the time. It wasn't until later in life that I realized that what I thought was just some sort of special talent that had been probably formed from my childhood and some of the things I dealt with when I was young. So yeah, and I think a lot of the people who listen to this podcast probably could relate to that. Um, but yeah, so then coming through my first few years and getting some great advice early on and some really good trainers who taught me that, you set your reputation right from the get. Like, everybody's looking at you and they want to know what kind of cop you are, because there's all different types. And so I worked my butt off to start out, and I wanted to be a hustler. I wanted that to be my reputation because I knew it would carry me through my career. I was taught that by some really good folks that I worked with. And so after 5 or so years working in patrol, just working nights and weekends, and having a good time, having a blast, honestly, just really enjoying it. Um, an opportunity came up to join Canine, and I thought, oh, okay, I've always wanted to do this. So the opportunities rarely come up to join the Canine unit because it's a place where people usually stay for a while. And so when the opportunity presented itself, I had a lieutenant that was over the Canine unit who came to me and said, "Hey, you should really put in for this. Like, we've been talking about you. This would be a good fit for you." Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm not sure. I think I was going to do that later in my career. I got other things I want to do. Go to detectives, maybe, um, and join the SWAT team. And I wanted to do that. And, oh, no, no, you don't understand. You should really think about doing it. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll put in. So I tested for it and then got first and got the position, and I never left. I never left. I stayed right there, man. It was just too much fun. The whole idea of what canine is, the fact that, your mission with an apprehension canine is to go search for serious violent felons. Like, that's beautiful. That's great. That's why I wanted to do police work. I wanted to go find bad guys, and there's not an area of the police department that we don't touch. We help every detective unit out. They can call us and ask us to assist with arrests. We help the SWAT team as a branch of the SWAT team. So we go on all the search warrants, um, apprehensions with our SAU guys, our special assignment unit. We go out for, we have details going on all the time where we go out and go after the human exploitation people. So, you know, child predators, we go find child predators, like, so much rewarding work, in the sense of, what we all signed up for. And so our whole unit right now, like, that's the mentality. And I can tell you, across the state, as the president of the association, I mean, that's the unique thing you find with canine guys. Every one of them is just that they're that true, like, want to kick down doors, catch bad guys, chase them to the ends of the earth kind of cops, like, hardworking, want to catch bad guys kind of cops. Like, I think that's the best way to describe it. I'm kind of searching for words, but that's about the best way to describe it. And that's kind of the commonality amongst all canine guys, and why we love doing what we do. And not to mention, there's a little gratification, I guess, when you think about, some bad guys, I think, are okay with getting caught. There's this whole concept of institutionalizing someone where they just feel comfortable in prison, and that they've gone there all their life, and it's where they feel comfortable. They feel very uncomfortable amongst society, where they have to be held to a different standard. And maybe that's true, maybe it's not, but when you come across someone who's really bad and you end up using your dog for an apprehension, there's something very gratifying about, at least if you're sending them home where they're supposed to be happy, like, well, send them home at least with a few injuries. Now, don't get me wrong. They earned it. They earned it. Whatever injury they get from the dog, they earned. If people don't know, the standard to go bite someone with a canine is very high. It's an intermediate weapon. It's just below deadly force. When our dogs are effective, we don't have to jump to that next level of deadly force, which, as I explain always to our citizens, that's why canine programs are so important. They save lives of cops, sure, but they also save bad guys' lives more than anything, honestly. Because without our canine being effective, it may be that the officer now has to jump to deadly force and shoot that suspect. So, but the reality is most of our bad guys surrender. I mean, you've seen our dogs work. Most people understand kind of what that looks like, and uh, people surrender. They give up mostly, but you occasionally come across that person who, even after giving, you know, gosh, I say two, but typically, I mean, that's like the minimum. We're talking 15, 20, 30 warnings sometimes. And still you get people that make that decision that, nope, I don't want to surrender. And so when you see a canine apprehension, read into that report. And if you have any questions about whether or not the bad guy had every opportunity to surrender, I think you'll find that they had every opportunity. So yeah, there's something unique about suspects that get bit by canines. I'll say that.
Yeah, 100%. Like you're not. No one's accidentally
Yeah.
getting bitten by like, oh, whoopsie, like, oh, I thought I paid for it, but it's in my pocket. Like, canine.
Hmm.
You've got
Hmm.
to done something pretty bad, man. So yeah, and it's all. I always find it funny, man. Everyone, the public loves critiquing it and stuff, and but yeah, like you said, man, there's a lot that happens before that step. Um, Dude, can you give me an idea about your time on the beat for Canine? What's the sort of stuff that the sort of jobs that you'd typically be doing? Um, and when was the first time you ran into Canine, by the way?
Yeah, patrol. Patrol's fun, man.
Patrols,
Patrol is the
right?
heart. Yeah, patrol is the heart of police work. And, there's a whole ideology in at least in American law enforcement of like being a good beat cop is like such a distinct honor. Um, there's nothing about working a beat for 20 or 25 years that is dishonorable at all over here in our police culture. There's no like, hey, how come you never promoted? You never went to a specialty assignment? Nope. I know some beat cops that go out and they are so good at their job, and like, uh, I envy them. And that was like my first goal was like just become a great beat cop. Like know your beat, know what's normal in that beat, know how to root out bad guys and figure out when something doesn't quite add up, know how to do a roadside interview so that you can get into someone's car legally and find whatever they're hiding, whether it's drugs or if they're, trying to hide their identity because they have warrants for their arrest, and then maybe they have weapons in the car that they're not supposed to have because they're a prohibited possessor. Getting into all that and knowing how to find it was like probably the best, coolest thing that I learned how to do as a new cop was when I started figuring out like that skill of like hunting bad guy. Like that was a good time. And so we had some spots, like I said, transient crime, so people would come to our city and party. Uh, Anybody local who would listen to this podcast might hear this and laugh a little bit. We had the Buzz nightclub was like kind of the area where I worked as a new cop, and it was a club that it was a hip hop club, but it attracted a certain crowd, a hip hop crowd. But we would have our gang task force come out and monitor the parking lot and start identifying people. And they came to us on multiple occasions saying, hey, you guys should have a shooting here every week. He said, that guy there is part of this gang. That guy there is part of that gang. They hate each other. That guy hates both of those guys. Said, they're all in the same building. So if they were in their neighborhood, back in their neighborhood, 20 miles west of here, they'd be shooting each other right now if they saw each other. But over here, they're just hanging out, and somehow this is all working. And so we didn't have a ton of shootings, but we did. Every once in a while, it would happen where things would flare up, and you'd see some of that violence spill out over there in the club. And that was kind of a cool way to like learn how to, in the rough and tumble streets of Scottsdale, learn how to do some real good police work. Just working that parking lot and watching people go back to their cars or hang out in their cars and just get into stuff and figure out who was doing the right thing and hanging out and having fun and partying, and who needed our attention. And that was cool. It was a good time, and I really took to finding drugs was one of my fun things that I enjoyed doing, and I think that's where I really kind of cut my teeth as a police officer was learning how to get into stuff, and find it, dig it up, and that helps. Like I said, that helps seal your reputation, and helps carry you through your career if that's what people know you as a worker, someone knows how to do the job well. So coming up and learning how to be a good patrol cop was like goal number one. And I tried to keep my mind off of everything else. And that's advice I give to all new guys. Like, hey, don't worry about like, don't come in day one saying I'm here to work towards my goal of being a violent crimes detective or being in Canine or being a narcotics detective. Like mission one, come in and prove that you just want to be a great beat cop and you know how to do that job. And everything else will come. Like if you do that first, you'll be great at everything and you'll get opportunities to do everything. And so that was the advice I got. And luckily I stuck to that and had a blast doing it. But, then the opportunity came to go to Canine and yeah, I couldn't pass that up. Didn't think I'd stay as long as I did, but it worked out really good. I wouldn't change any of it.
Yeah, nice man. And what about, so with your patrol work, what about the ugly part of that stuff? Were there kind of jobs that you didn't want to go to? Anything in particular that ever stuck with you in
Yeah.
that role? Because I know that there's a huge variety of things that you'll be exposed to, and it's not always the cool stuff, catching the
Yeah.
baddies, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the that's that side that you deal with later on in life when you sit down with a therapist and you start talking about how things impact you. Um, I tried to manage really well, and I wouldn't necessarily segregate what I saw in patrol versus what I see now because Canine is actually a supplements patrol, so we're still on the road and we still go to calls, and so we're still showing up at the dead body calls, the suicide. If we're nearby, we'd go to the child drowning. All those things that really stick with you and bother you. The shootings, obviously, because our job is to respond to all in progress or just occurred violent crimes, and so we try to be first on scene for those and go to work. But yeah, so you get exposed to a lot, and that's there's not much distinction between what I see in Canine versus what I saw in patrol. So it's all kind of one big crap sandwich as far as what you see. And it does take a toll, as it turns out. I had strategies as a new cop that I thought all my career were working pretty good. I I tried to detach myself from any suicide or any death. I early on said that's just a body. I don't know that person. I've never seen him smile. I've never seen him laugh. I've never seen him cry. They have no emotions. It's just a body. And for the longest time, that worked pretty good. But you start to, I guess, as time goes on, maybe those things you think you're dealing with them, but they're slowly kind of cooking in the background, and you just don't know it. And they all start to come back a little bit. But I can distinctly remember on one of the calls I went on to, I don't know, 6 years ago or so. Um, a woman in her 40s had been shot by a an active shooter, and it was a big case that happened here in the Scottsdale area that the guy was on the run for like 5 days and was just basically had a hit list of everybody that in his life that had to do with the downfall of his life, and he was slowly taking them all out like movie stuff. It was wild, but he had gone into this law office, and it wasn't who he was looking for, but he just was going to kill everybody in the law office. And it was a Friday afternoon when there was only two people left in the office, and they were just wrapping up for the evening and putting the last bit of mail in the mailbox and kind of getting ready to head out. And as they did, this guy comes in and just starts shooting. And so I was one of the first officers on scene, and when I got inside, she's laying on the ground and she's bleeding, and I thought, okay, we'll put some work in here, see if we can save her. I could tell pretty early on, not a high likelihood she was going to be saved because of where the gunshots were, but give it an effort regardless. And so I started doing chest compressions and working on getting some of her holes patched up, and I was fine. I was okay with that. And again, one of those moments where I thought, wow, that was good how calm I stayed. There was no stress there. That weird, what I thought was a superpower that's not. But it wasn't until later on I went back over to her desk as we were sitting there waiting for detectives to show up, and I walked past her desk, and I look back on it, I think, man, what a mistake that was. Because when I walked over to her desk, I saw her pictures of her whole family, and it was her alive with her family, with her daughter, and they were sitting on a beach, and there was a nice sunset, and it was like, oh man, that looks like my wife. That looks like my family. That looks like pictures that would be on my desk. And man, it humanized her real quick, and that one stuck with me. Like that one really stuck with me. That bothered me a lot to watch that, to have looked back now and know the terror she experienced when she died. And I thought, Man, and it really is. There's some parts of this world that are just evil. There's people in this world that are evil, and there's people that are, but beyond immoral, they're amoral, and they have no sense for how they hurt people, and if they hurt people, they just don't care. And then it kind of made me do a whole Rolodex kind of replay of all the moments in my career where I saw something like that and brought all those people to life and humanized all of them. And, all those people I thought I was just putting in a special category of not real human, just kind of put them aside. Now all of a sudden they were people and they had families. And I was really bothered by kind of how they met their demise and how their life ended. And I thought, man, that's a little tough now. That's heavy. That's weighing on me. But that's part of the sacrifice you choose to make when you decide to come into this career.
Yeah, that's intense, man. I mean, the likelihood of anybody even having to do CPR, let alone go through that whole scenario, is extremely low. Even in the cops, I think that's relatively low, right? So,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, damn. And obviously, yeah, like you said, open the floodgates. And that was 6 years ago, so you were still canine.
yep,
Because you don't expect to do that kind of stuff, I imagine, now in canine, right? You're like, oh, my days of like you said,
yeah.
drowned kids, or some cleanup at a car crash or something. Yeah, they're probably over. I'm just going to chase them through the bush, bite them, and we're sort of good. But yeah, I don't know, man. If you come across something extremely unexpected like that, or
Yep.
that's totally misaligned with your current reality, doesn't sit so well, does it?
No, no, it doesn't. And you're right. Like you tend to think, oh, okay, canine, you're on the enforcement side. So you get out there and you just go hunt down bad guys. You go find them, take them to jail, whatever means necessary. And it is a big part of the job, and I love that part. But it doesn't change what your role is. You're still a protector, a community protector. That's your job. And so certain calls will come up, and it's not time to be canine. It's time to be, crisis entry guy. It's time to be the guy, in a hot zone doing CPR and trying to, put tourniquets and put quick clot into holes and try to save someone's life, and you don't have to be at work. Shoot, it was 2 years ago, on my son's birthday. I was leaving his basketball game, and my family was driving in a separate car up ahead, and all of a sudden I see all the cars swerving and smoke coming up right around where they should have been, and it was a very clearly a car wreck. I thought, oh no, like that's right where my family's at. And it looked bad. I could see smoke coming up, like maybe something was starting to catch on fire and cars were turning around. And so in my own personal vehicle, not even at work, I jumped on the shoulder and drove towards it. And as I got there, I could see that there was a sports car that had spun out, was impacted, and was catching on fire. And I immediately felt relief. Okay, that's not my family. That's not their car. They didn't get hit, but my family was there and was stopped because they had seen it as well. And so they were out, and so I ran up to see if I could help. And sure enough, here's this kid who I got to know his family very well later on. But this young man who was, just a year or two older than my son, who was trapped in the passenger seat as this car was starting to, be fully engulfed in flames. And everybody's standing around just looking and crying and screaming and, saying he's trapped, but nobody's doing anything. And I thought, why is no one doing anything? Full grown men standing there watching. I thought, what in the world is going on right now? And I guess that was a very impactful moment for me to even later, so late in my career, just to have such a great understanding for the difference between, you know, who police officers are at their core, the type of people they are. We say it all the time. They run towards danger, run towards gunfire. It's just instinctual. You just think it. You just do it. You don't even really think it. You just go because someone needs help. And yeah, there was never a second thought. As soon as I ran up and I see, sure enough, there's a young man trapped in that car, and everybody's just kind of doing the duck walk back and forth and just screaming, but nobody's doing anything. So, ran up and started breaking tree branches and getting into where he was at. And his poor kid's leg was trapped. He's completely unconscious. Didn't appear to be alive, but the fire's starting to come into the passenger area at this point, and I reach in and grab onto him and start pulling him out, and ended up finally getting his leg to free because it was kind of crunched in between the smashed metal, but pulled hard enough to get his leg to come out, and then got him to the side of the road. And thank God there was a doctor and a nurse that had also stopped. So I drug him to the side of the road as now the car is fully engulfed, and they started working on him. That young man lived after that experience, and it was amazing for me to watch him slowly recover. He was not doing well. He really took a lot of damage, but he started this slow recovery, and it was such a great story. But unfortunately for him, he didn't make it out of the therapy side of things because he was nonverbal as he was learning to speak again, and he was very. There were days where he was communicative and then wasn't, and ultimately he ended up having an issue with some of the damage to his internal organs, and ended up having some intestines that I think had twisted up, and ultimately I believe sepsis is what set in and toxified his blood. He ultimately passed away, but stayed close to his family, and they were so thankful that they had those extra months with him in that whole experience and watching him, recover and almost make it back. But that was such an emotional thing. But again, looking back on it, it was just one of those moments where it doesn't have to be when you're at work. We talk about police officers all the time being those guys that really don't turn it off because it is your calling, it is who you are. And that's a great example of that. I'm talking to all my buddies who do police work. They all have stories like that where something happens while you're not at work, and it's like no different. You still take action. You do it exactly the same as you probably would have done when you were at work, because it's just who you are. And then watching that stark contrast between how we react to those moments and how normal folks react to those moments, right? They don't go running towards a car that's on fire. That's not in their instinct. They think the car is going to explode. But they're that's just it was interesting to see that difference.
Yeah, man, that's a strange. I mean, I guess being a police officer, you see that stuff around where you live all the time, but to do it off duty, then I think the what's interesting about that story is the huge amount of follow up. Watching this kid recover and getting to know his family and stuff. But I mean, that's got to be one of the satisfying parts of that job, surely, right? Like, yeah, sometimes it ends bad, but in that particular case, mate, you afforded the family the chance to say goodbye, like to come to terms with the death of their son. So that's got to be satisfying, right? Surely, whether
It
it's few
was.
and far between or not.
And I struggled so much with that one, because I think, again, I knew that there was always a risk with trying to become emotionally sort of involved with that family and with their son. His name's Zach. Um, and going to visit him in the hospital and getting to know his parents and his family and coming to events that they were hosting. I knew there was a risk to me emotionally and psychologically to get that close, because if things didn't turn out, then you feel that same loss. But I wanted so bad for that kid to make it and pull through. And so I felt a lot of sadness. I think an extra type of sadness, a different kind of sadness when he passed on, because I think I just felt like that was a beautiful moment that he was going to recover from being on death's doorstep. I mean, he was really, really badly hurt. He probably shouldn't have lived. I thought, that's wonderful. This kid's going to have a life, and he's going to recover, and one day we're going to meet up and hang out. And I already had in my mind that he was going to be okay. And I was watching his recovery very closely through text messages from his mom and phone calls, and then to have him not make it was just such a huge punch to the gut. Just because again, I grew very close to the family and became so hopeful, and but I knew that was if you're it's okay to get close. It's okay to experience that kind of loss. And, his mother is such a strong woman. And I think she really helped me kind of, through her strength, understand that better, because, the loss was hers. I mean, 100%. The loss of her son, no one could ever come close to what she felt. That was the true loss in this whole thing, her and her husband. And, they were so, um, thankful. Yeah, that's the right word. They were thankful to me because they felt like they should have lost him the day of the accident and never had a chance to process any of it. Just have that shock of one day your son is here and the next day he's gone. But they were so appreciative of those extra months they had to be with him and talk to him and watch him slowly make a recovery and smile again and try to verbalize. And even though they had that hope, like they don't regret that for a minute, that hope was there and then it was lost. Um, and that kind of, I guess, helped me understand and process that better, and not feel so broken by it. Was one, seeing how strong they were, but then also understand how much they appreciated what I had done and the sacrifice I had made, and that they loved having that extra time with their son as he tried to recover.
Yeah, dude. I mean, man, I feel the emotion when you when you tell that story. Have you ever told that story before in its entirety?
Yeah, I've talked about that one a few times. It was an interesting how that one happened because it was such a highly, like, it was a really populated area, and it was right by my kid's school. And so there ended up being a bunch of people driving by who were taking video and taking pictures because they had seen this car get smashed and then go off the side of the road and catch on fire. And so it was rush hour on like a Thursday. And so there was a bunch of people taking pictures and videos. So word got out real quick in the neighborhood, that the rescue had occurred and that I had pulled that kid from the car. So there was a lot of folks that reached out and text messages, and um, ended up actually being awarded a life-saving award from my police department, even though I wasn't on duty. Um, but unfortunately, right when that ceremony was supposed to happen is when Zach passed away. And so I kind of decided to forego it was still considered a life-saving award, but I didn't want to go to the, the ceremony to be presented the award. I just kind of wanted to pass on it. And I still have some things that I plan to do for the family regarding that life-saving award. Cause I have a whole different feeling about, um, who saved whose life, in Zach's loss, in his death. I went to a lot of different things before his death and after his death that involved his family, his classmates, and he really well loved, and respected by his peers, and it just by all accounts seemed to be a really really sweet kid. And I have a plan to bring the life saving award to his parents in Zach's name, not in mine, because I think that was really the true impact for him and the long legacy for Zach. Is, yeah, he passed away at 18, and it feels like there was so much more life for him to live and so many more things for him to do. But looking back and after observing sort of how his peers reacted and his friends reacted to him passing, I mean, how many lives did he save in his passing? That suddenly everybody his age realized, oh, like, we're not invincible. We could die. We could be hurt. Our lives can change in an instant. So how many kids had that moment, right? And I can remember having those moments even as a young man, the first time someone who I knew who was my age passed away, and I thought, whoa, okay, we can actually die. That's possible. We're not invincible. And so I truly believe that Zach died, but not in vain. That I think his friends and family will remember him forever, and and many of them, I'm sure, altered some of the ways they live just because of what him and his family experienced. So he's also a lifesaver in that way.
Yeah, dude, that's fucking incredible, man. Especially, getting the award and stuff, and then the timing of him passing away with the ceremony, man. And look, I'm not gonna make you sit in this place for a while and keep recounting that story and whatnot, because you've got his family barbecue and stuff. I want you to leave this podcast happy. But yeah, anyway, man, that's a fucking incredible story, man. I mean, the timing and stuff of that is just out of control, dude.
Yeah.
Um, Mate, can we get to I want to get to your canine career, man, because I want to hear about the stuff that you fucking love doing.
Mm.
Um, Hit me with getting into canine, and then what it's like being out there on the road by yourself for the first time, banging in your first jobs.
Yeah. So yeah, if there's anybody listening to this that is thinking about getting into police work, I've always endorsed going canine. And I don't think you'll find anybody in police work that would argue that canine is probably the best job in all of police work. You're given this tool. So usually you get into canine because you already have this aptitude to sort of work and go hunt and find bad guys, right? But now you're given this tool that's like a force multiplier that makes you that much better at your job. And man, what an incredible, um, effective tool a well-trained canine and a hard-working police officer are. I mean, it is incredible to see the work that can be done and how effective at law enforcement and catching bad guys a good team can be. And a team being handler and dog. That's a canine team. And I was honored when I got the position. 17 years later, I'm honored today to still be in Canine. I hope to have at least 5 to 8 more years doing it, if my body can hold up, because it is a physical job. But man, it is such a great way to make a living. It's such a cool way to do police work. Um, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but like, there's no part of the police department you don't impact. Yes, there's a huge component that involves catching bad guys, and that's kind of like the bread and butter of the assignment. Um, and it's what all of us love to do. But there's a whole nother side to it too. Like, we are the unofficial ambassadors for law enforcement. I say all the time, there's people that we come across that look at us in that uniform and go, I don't know. I don't want to talk to a cop. He looks like an asshole. I don't want to talk to him. But you bring that dog and you put him beside that cop, and people can't help themselves. They just got to come up and talk. They got to get to know you. They want to ask a question about the dog and the training. And just like that, you've just had an opportunity to have a conversation with someone who maybe wasn't really pro law enforcement, and that's a big deal out here in the States. There's a big mission now for us to try and sort of rebuild our relationship with the public. We're in this constant state, and I was always told this, and it turned out to be true in a full career, of watching the pendulum swing back and forth when it came to support for law enforcement. You got your people who are diehard supporters of law enforcement and always will be. They understand the job. Maybe they have family members that are in that career. And then you have folks on the other end of the spectrum that a cop can do no right. It doesn't matter. They're all evil fascists. And then you got everybody else in the middle that's trying to figure out where they stand, and they're watching the news and they're watching body camera footage on a little fisheye lens with terrible audio and trying to determine if what I just saw I'm okay with. And so it's hard sometimes to maintain our reputation, and we've seen it tarnished through events here in the States. And the responsibility is on us as police officers to fix that reputation. I can't expect the general public to go out and understand what we do, or take classes in public safety to go learn more about our decision making and our use of force continuum and our defensive tactics and why we do certain things. So we're given this platform as canine officers where we become these ambassadors. We meet people all the time. We go out to community events. We go and do public speaking engagements. And we do canine demos to show how the dog works. Like, we have this tremendous platform to reach out to the public, and we can't take that for granted. We can't let that opportunity pass us by. We have to represent the profession as it should be represented, which is, we are hardworking, honest people who love protecting people. I mean, that's what it really comes down to. And if you have concerns about things you've seen, ask questions. And transparency is a big part of that. Like you brought up the Desert Dog Canine Trials. Well, it's not just a canine trial competition. We also call it the Public Safety Expo. We added that component about 6 years ago because we wanted it to become, jokingly I say, an extravaganza of public safety. Like, we want you to come out and learn. Like, the general public, we don't want we do, I shouldn't say we don't. We want our families to come. We want all of our relatives and our friends to come. They're obviously more than welcome to come cheer us on. But man, we just need the general public to show up. And people have no ties to law enforcement and not even sure how they feel about cops. Because we tell those folks, like, you're gonna walk away with a different opinion. You're gonna come out and you're gonna stand in front of the guy who drives that giant piece of armor that you hate because you think it looks so militaristic and it's scary, and police officers should not have giant armored vehicles. And then you're gonna have a conversation with the guy who drives it, who's parked there in the Westworld dome, and you can start asking questions about why we need it, and he'll explain, yeah, you see that mark there, that was from a gunshot coming from an elevated platform where a guy was trying to shoot at us as we were driving in, and you see that big gash there in the side. We had to drive through a back wall to do an officer down rescue, and it was a good thing we had that piece of armor with us, or else we wouldn't have been able to save our fellow officer who was being shot at. You're going to walk away with a different perspective. You're going to have your own personal knowledge now, so the next time you go watch one of these videos where whatever talking head from the news is explaining what was so wrong with it, with no real good background or knowledge, from a place of ignorance, you're going to have your own personal perspective of actually, I don't see it that way because I talked to an officer once and he told me about why they use that piece of equipment. And I think it's totally appropriate what they did. And now that transparency comes in where we're showing like there's no reason for us to hide anything about what we do. There's so much cool stuff happening in law enforcement, like in the technology side of things, with the cameras we're using and drones and getting, live feeds through these cameras to track down our bad guys, it's incredible. And we're not trying to hide it. There's no deep state secret conspiracy to try and track all the citizens. We're trying to find bad guys. And so let us talk to you. Let us explain what we're doing. And, that event has become the single best, at least local for us, best community public education event in the state. We get 7,000 people that come through there on the weekend, and not all of them are law enforcement family members. Some of them are just regular Joes, and we're having conversations, and they're coming up and petting our dogs. They're like, "Wait a minute, I don't understand. I thought these dogs were vicious weapons that tear people apart." Nope, you just saw him on the field, right? He did all that cool bite work, and this is the same dog, the one you're giving belly rubs to right now, and is giving you face kisses. Same dog. So no, they're not that way. They are amazing tools that are honestly unmatched in the world of uh, uh, specialized weapons. They're a locating tool that also can hold and apprehend someone for us, and they're also a amazing de-escalation tool. First and foremost, they're de-escalation. They bring people to surrender more than anything else. And so when people learn that and they get that knowledge, like, man, what a different perspective they have when they start seeing some of our police videos, or they start hearing stories, or they got a friend at a party that's telling about what an a-hole the cop was that they came across. Like, some of them have bad days, but also when you get to know some of us and you realize kind of what we deal with on a daily basis and who we're dealing with, and you tend to kind of you can't help but have a different perspective, and it humanizes, right? We're trying to remind these folks, we are your neighbors. We are the people you go to church with, that you're at the grocery store with, that like we're you, and if you don't like what we're doing, by the way, and you want to see some changes, like come and join us. We're hiring. Like, come do the job. We're not separate. We're not different from you. We're made up of our community. And so I think that having that event and being able to do that with the public, that really helps kind of fix the narrative and change people's perspectives on us. And we're extremely proud of that. I mean, yeah, the competition's great. And there's a bunch of cool things happening, which I'll get you filled in on before this podcast is over, and things that are coming down the road. But that public safety expo, getting in contact with the public and having them come out and watch us play with our dogs and hang out and just be part of our brotherhood, our culture, is huge. Like, because they're welcome. The general public is welcome to be part of our culture. It is not, it's not a members only club. We want everybody to be a part of it. And truthfully, that's at the heart of what police work is anyway, right? It's a whole community effort. Everybody pitches in. Everybody works together to find bad guys. We can't do it without the public, and that's why we want that to be part of our culture here. And so, yeah, I think we're slowly winning that battle for sure. That pendulum, in my time, in the past, 8 years or so that I've been doing so much of this ALECA stuff. I've watched that pendulum really push back towards the positive, and we got a lot of really good support in the community.
Yeah, because the in that stadium, obviously, obviously at the Desert Dog Trials when I was there, walking around the stadium and stuff, and watching not just the trial itself, but the big expo outside, was unreal, man. Like, we don't do anything like that here. Every now we've got the Avalon Air Show for the Air Force and maybe a couple of Army Open days or whatever, but I've never seen anything like that. Definitely nowhere near that scale in Australia. So yeah, man, I think it's obviously deliberate from you being the president, and I've seen you out there a lot of the times on the news, doing interviews, pushing the capability, doing visits and stuff. That's very deliberate from you as the president, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Again, that, that natural introvert that lives inside me. I've promised him, young childhood Tony, that I promise there'll be a day that we get to go back to being him and just live in a cabin somewhere, quiet by a stream.
But not
not,
this day.
not today. No, no. Right now, there's too much good stuff happening. Too much positive impact on the world and our community. And yeah, right. Our event is the biggest of its kind in the U.S. as well. It's unmatched. So we are the largest police canine competition and public safety expo in the United States. So I imagine that puts us somewhere real high in the world, but it's necessary. We have to have it. And it's just such a cool feeling to know that, we can have that impact on the culture. We don't have to sit around and wait to figure out who's going to help bring the culture back and get people back on our side. We are, we can do it ourselves. We'll host this event, and it's all cops putting it on. Our entire board is made up of police officers. Our membership is 350 or so members. We put that event on. That's our baby, and it's had such a huge impact. And I think that's what gets some of our members so fired up about being a part of it, is they realize, like, no, it's me taking control of, that dirty look I get when I go to Starbucks. Like, I don't want that. I don't deserve that. Why is that person looking at me that way? I wish I could do something to change it. Well, we can. We have that opportunity. We can host this event, invite people to come out and spend time with us and learn about what we do, ask questions about how we train the dogs. We have guest speakers nonstop up on the stage talking about all the different aspects of law enforcement. And it is like it's just an influx of knowledge for the general public. And, we win people over that way, because once they have the knowledge, it changes perspective. And so we're proud of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's unreal, man. And dude, so when it comes to the actual canine work and you're out there on the street catching the baddies, do you think that gets the attention that it deserves?
Uh, yeah, yeah, actually I do. I think it does get the attention it deserves. I think, I think that it's been really positive, watching people's reaction. We didn't know what to expect when body cameras came out, because canine bites look bad, right? They look bad.
Oh,
They
straining and
sound
stuff.
worse. Yeah, they sound worse. Um, we were told from the get-go, like, this might end our industry. This has zero jury appeal, like, this could kill us, as far as having biting canines. There's been challenges to the profession for sure. But honestly, no, we've seen a lot of support come of it. We've seen people applaud what our canines are capable of. And that's the hard work of all of our cops that are out there, our canine cops, training their butts off and just working to make their tools so efficient and so effective. And, we're a high liability unit. We get it. We have a living, breathing, thinking, biting animal. He can think for himself. If we don't put in the work and get him to a certain proficiency level, we could be put out of business. One or two bad canine handlers could end an entire canine unit for a city, and we could see a domino effect occur. So again, ALECA's mission, number one, is always going to be training. Number one is training, always. We will never, ever have any cop tell us, I can't attend training because the budget got cut, because training is the first thing that gets cut when there's budget crisis. Our training's free to our members, so it's not going to be because of money. If you can't attend training, it's because your agency didn't want you to go. It's not because of a budget issue. We want you to come and make sure that that all of our canines are staying extremely proficient, because we don't want to see the industry get hurt by a bunch of cops that don't know what they're doing running a biting dog. So no, we've seen the hard work that occurs on the street. We've seen mostly positive. Um, and I can't really see a negative to anything that we've experienced, since the invent of body cameras, and which is essentially, that was a huge moment in the law enforcement when body cameras hit, because it was the first time the general public was going to see everything we do and hear everything we do. Not the edited version you saw on Cops, it was, or live PD. This was all the raw body cam footage being put out there for people to see. And so it was a moment where we all kind of sat back like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know if this is going to be good for us. Turns out it was good. And even the canine side of it. So yeah, I think it's been mostly positive. I think the work that's being put in is appreciated by the public, and things are good in the canine world.
Alrighty, Tony. Um, Mate, like we were just saying, we've had a 24-hour break. Um, People listening, I think the last question I asked was if you'd had any of your body worn footage up on the news, and then I wanted to ask you a bit about some of your favourite canine apprehensions and stories. But yeah, mate, mid recording, the power from a whole block slash suburb slash street went out. It got cut off, man. So 24 hours later, I guess we'll just kind of pick up where we were.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah. And then obviously we had a chat offline about some hectic stuff. So you and I, we're
Yeah.
just doing this full left turn from where we were.
We're still in good spirits. I mean, I think that's how we left it when we were talking 24 hours ago, but maybe some wardrobe changes too. So more ALECA swag.
Mate, yeah, you got the ALECA one. I've still got the same shirt. I made sure I wear it, and I've now turned my head backwards. I want people to know how dynamic the ALECA gear can be.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's good stuff. It's all for sale too. And it's available, and we'll ship around the world. So you can go on ALECAPoliceCanine.com and pick up some swag of your own.
Yeah, yeah. Or
Yeah.
you can go through intensely personal crisis, suicide attempt, 8 years worth of therapy, and then make up a business and then fly over there as a guest speaker, and then you'll just get a hat and a shirt for free.
All of it. Yeah. And we'll give you as many as you want too. So just bring
There
an
you go.
extra
So
bag with you when you come over.
two
Some
options,
luggage. Yeah.
What's your time and your money worth?
One's much
Um,
easier for sure.
So, dude, yeah, last we sort of were speaking about, the invents of and the introduction of body worn cameras and stuff.
Yeah.
Mate, can you hit me with, if have you ever had any of your body worn footage on the news and stuff? And then, yeah, tell me some of your favorite sort of canine apprehensions or even just pursuits, mate.
Yeah, there's been some good stuff over the years. Some of my camera footage has gotten out there. There's been some, I find some of it kind of humorous. The call that I talked about with the lady that I wanted to save that had been shot in her office on a Friday afternoon. That was a huge case out here, and so they took all the body worn footage and they put it out on YouTube, completely just raw. And little did I know, my camera was running even when I was talking to some of the detectives because it was when body worn cameras were kind of new. And there were some moments there where I kind of cringed a little bit, like, ugh, man, I wish I would have known that was running. I shouldn't have said that. It was comments about a previous unsolved murder in our city, where the woman we were looking for, who was missing at the time, who we thought had been killed, had the same last name. And so I was giving the detectives a hard time, like, yeah, I know you struggle with people with this last name. And so, and it was just like, it was so dumb. What a dumb joke. So that was part of my introduction to body worn cameras. I'm like, okay, you need to remember when this thing is on. You need to remember to shut your mouth. So, but there's a show called, I think it's called Body Cam. I'm pretty sure it's called Body Cam. And so we had a case that we were on with somebody stole a U-Haul and then fled from us and then ran into a neighborhood. And so some of my footage was on TV from that where I'd deployed. But most of my stuff that gets on the news was kind of back in the era of, live, you know, news where they were showing up at scenes and then they'd have a helicopter overhead. And then my kids would tell me later on, oh yeah, Dad, we were watching the news and we saw you and Jaro, and yeah, we could tell it was you when you guys were going from the armor towards the house. And so a lot of my stuff was that overhead footage, and especially lately, it seems like, man, I don't get a ton of deployments anymore. So much of what I do is so administrative that, the time that I spend at work, we can still mix it up and we still get into it. We have some fun. It's some good calls still. But it seems like most of my labor is spent doing ALECA business, which thank goodness my department is so good about letting me do a lot of that on duty. And so I end up doing a lot of meetings, doing a lot of interviews and promotional stuff, and then occasionally just mix in a little bit of police work in there and still have some fun. But yeah, there's been some good deployments over the years. I've had a lot of fun doing this job. I'd say my favorite by far. Case is done. The guy's dead, so we can talk about it. But we were up north in the northern part of our city, and we had someone who had taken his family hostage in a casita on his property, and it was a fairly large property. And so I joined up as I arrived a little bit late, but I joined up with members of our street crimes unit who tend to be a little bit more advanced tactically as far as their skills from patrol officers, and have some extra equipment, whatnot, and usually armed with rifles and heavy vests, and whereas patrol maybe not doesn't have that, you know. But we knew the suspect was somewhere in the house and had a rifle with him and a pistol, and had put a vest on himself, like he was ready for war. He was ready to fight it out. So we were trying to move covertly. This is daytime, but we were trying to move covertly through the bushes and approach his house and try to locate this casita. And we kept thinking casita in our world is like a detached guest house. There's a main house, detached guest house. So we're searching and searching, like, there is no casita back here. And so it made us have to stay in the area much longer than we were comfortable with. Now, lucky for me, a couple of my coworkers, two other canine guys, who I trust with my life, and this is a perfect example why, because they're outstanding cops. They had taken a position when they arrived at the call. They had grabbed their rifles and they had gone up to the rooftop at the neighbor's house across the street and gotten a position, sort of an overwatch position, in case this guy popped out and decided to go to war with us. And so as we moved through the bushes, trying to locate this casita, we had finally figured out it was actually attached to the house, which is why we were thrown off. So we felt that it was pressing and urgent enough because he had made statements about killing his family. And it was like his wife, his mid-20-year-old daughter, and then his granddaughter who was inside that casita, and they couldn't get out because he was telling them to stay put. And so we felt it was pressing enough to do, a hostage rescue type tactic. So put ourselves in a little bit more harm's way than normal. And so we approached, got up to where this casita was, and just about that time is where he figured out where we were, but he had appeared on the rooftop, full heavy armor, rifle slung, and then he comes up onto the top of his rooftop. And luckily for us, we could that our Overwatch, which are my two fellow canine handler officers, had seen him come up onto the rooftop and knew where we were, and they could see that he had a beat on us and he was tracking us. And so he came up over the top of the little like parapet wall that was on the top of his rooftop. And just as he came up and started to level that rifle and come up over the top of it where he was going to start raining down bullets, and had all the advantage in the world. I mean, we would have been showered. I found out later he was running green tip armor piercing rounds inside that rifle too.
Oof.
So just as he came up over the top, both of them simultaneously, perfect decision making, right on time, put some rounds on him and dropped him, spun him and dropped him. But we lost sight of him at that point. So the reason this becomes one of my favorite canine deployments is because obviously I hear the bullets whizzing overhead. I know they engage with him. I'm not sure where they're coming from, but we all jump and run and take cover. And then as the shooting stops and we get some of the information out over the air as far as what they had seen and what occurred, we had a good feeling he was down and maybe potentially out of the fight. But I wasn't going to take any chances with us having to move up to the rooftop where he still had tactical advantage. So I joined up with our SWAT commander and said, hey, let's run a dog up there first. Let me let Jarl go up and do a death check on him. And thinking to myself, obviously the tactic is sound. We're not going to run up on this guy and then let him play possum and then start cranking rounds as we come up this tiny little staircase, which was the only way to access him on the roof. So the tactic was sound and very justified. But at the same time, there was a part of me was thinking, like, yeah, well, you were about to rain bullets down on me and all my coworkers. This is exactly how this should end. So Jarl gets up to the top of the rooftop and he gets to where this guy's at, and he's kind of laid out behind an air conditioning unit, and gets up to where he's at, and the drone could see that the dog was on him. And again, totally passive. Guy's not moving. Hardest bite in the canine world is someone who's totally passive, zero movement. So Jarl's kind of standing on him, walking on him, no movement. And I'm yelling the bite command, and eventually Jarl kind of realizes, oh, this thing, this motionless thing. Oh, I got you. So he gets a hold of him and grabs onto like an inside peck, and then just starts thrashing and just bites the shit out of him, which beautiful for us, right? Like now we see this guy has zero movement. He's not reacting to the bite. No way he's alive or has any way to fight us. So come up, take the dog off the bite, move his body into a safer position so we can then make this thing a crime scene. But all's well that ends well. Bad guy died. Cops all walked away. Our hostages were fine. They ended up going, well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, I don't know if they were fine. They survived, but they were pretty traumatized afterwards. But
Yeah. Matt, that's a great story, man. Especially because obviously, outcome for officer safety is very good.
yeah,
Dude, I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago with a guy, and he was telling this. It was like a tactical guy, and he was telling this story about, they get the briefs about who the dude is, and the fucking life's falling apart or whatever it is. And this one particular story he told, they went and they got this guy, and they basically just sort of sprung him moving around the stronghold, and they were like, "Hey, don't fucking move." They spoke to this guy, reasoned with him, and he sort of put his weapon down and came out, no damage. I think he had held hostages or something. And obviously, if you look into someone's history, this guy's had his life fallen apart, kids taken away, or whatever it is. How much of that sort of backstory do you get prior to a job like that, or even after, for example? Not to excuse or justify someone's behaviour like that, but is that something that's given to you freely, or that you maybe look for, or is it just there's no time, you just go to the next job?
No, 100%. Yeah, we try to get that information. You bet, because ideally, we'd love to see everyone surrender peacefully. I think I told you in the beginning of the podcast, like we get way more surrenders than we ever get bites because the psychological factor, the deterrent, people tend to surrender to the dog just instinctually. Um, but we try to get that background information whenever we can. And on the big ones, obviously, we really work for it because we know we're probably heading into something that's going to be extended. We got a great group of folks at our department. We have our crisis response team, our CRT officers. Those are really talented folks that are specially trained, specifically in some people dealing with crisis, right? People in crisis who are dealing with depression or mental illness, combination of both, substance abuse, and they're some of them are negotiators for our SWAT team as well, but they certainly have that similar training, and they're so valuable to bring along with us because combination of them with some of the other sort of technological advancements we see in our city. We have a real-time crime center, which I'm not sure you've ever heard that term or you're familiar with it, but we have folks that are dedicated to the big camera system that we're running in our city, where we have kind of eyes all over the city. They use artificial intelligence to help monitor the cameras and pick up on suspect locations, vehicle movements, give us up to the minute real information. They get drones out that can leave from docking stations and get overhead within a minute and give us eyes overhead on some of these calls we're going on. But beyond that, they can do full workups. So if we get a name or an address or a phone number, they're suddenly popping out tons of information for us. Like, okay, the person that called is comes back to this phone number. Criminal history shows that they have a violence potential and that there's substance abuse issues. And here's some of the prior calls that we've had with them. Here's known relatives, like everything you could possibly need to start doing negotiations and have conversations with somebody. And in the past, we would be asking for that stuff, and it would take certainly 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes, maybe closer to an hour to get some of the information we needed. Now we're getting it before we ever show up. It's in the comments on the call. And so we're really got this whole, like, we have almost a different type of ammunition now coming in. We're capable of dealing with the worst case scenario, but also we are so stocked up on ammunition to try and talk this person out and get a successful, peaceful resolution. We're so prepared in ways we've never been before. I mean, it's really exciting to see sort of the advancements in our city, especially just in the past 3-4 years. It's been really recent. But what a great tool, what a great group of folks. And yeah, we've had a lot of things come to peaceful resolution because we've been able to learn so much prior to ever arriving to the call and dealing with our person.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. Hey, and does that ever give you more of an appreciation prior to going in? Do you have like a maybe empathy is not the right word, but do you have more of an appreciation, so to speak? Like a guy's life blows up, his
Yeah.
missus took his kids or whatever, and his dog died or something. Does that ever pop into your mind, or is that something that you sort of like, that's interesting, but I've got to put that away because once that rifle's pointing at your face, it doesn't matter.
No. Yeah, no, I put it on the back burner when it's time to go to work because everybody has agency, right? Everybody deals with their stuff and everybody has the opportunity to make their own decisions. You have agency. You can choose how you're going
Mm.
to respond to what you're dealing with. Do I have sympathy? 100%. I feel for these people. I really do. Everyone knows who's ever been through anything. Sometimes it feels like your whole world is crumbling and there's nothing stopping you from just reacting and losing control, momentarily. And so you definitely try to empathize with that sort of psychology that they're going through. And we hope that it ends peacefully because we want them to get help. Every conversation I have, Canine tends to take commands whenever we show up and do a suspect contact. And I have a I have a belief that as you're talking to people, you really got to show that empathy as you're conversing with them. Help them understand that the dog may be here, the armor's here, the rifles are pointed at you, but hey, man, we really don't want to hurt you. Please, like, do what you can to help us help you. Like, we don't want to see you get hurt. And I get that information out while I'm talking to them. Let them know, like, it really is our goal to get you help. That call I spoke about that I just mentioned, that guy had dealt with a ton of personal life issues. His life was kind of falling apart. We found that out after the fact. We didn't know beforehand, but you feel for him a little bit. One of the early bites I ever got, I had a canine, my first dog, that was shot on a deployment, and he was shot engaging our suspect. This particular person had broken into a house. Now, he was first partying with these folks. He had gone back to their house after being at the bar partying with them all night. They went back to the house to go party more and play some pool. At one point, he kind of lost it, right? And this one's going to really, really hit home with you and a bunch of your listeners. We found out kind of midway through the call that this particular person was a uh, recon Marine. And so he had been on multiple deployments, had been in some very serious stuff, and was back home and had been home for a while, but had been spiraling. His family reached out and told us, like, yeah, there had been a clear path for self-destruction. Like, we couldn't stop him. But he was really, really destroyed by what he'd experienced in war. And that was clearly what was driving his self-destruction. He just didn't know how to deal with it. And so he was drinking, he was doing drugs, he was partying all night, he was driving under the influence. He just didn't care. He didn't care how he screwed up. This is all information we started to get as we're finding out who our person is inside this house. And so, yeah, I feel for him. I feel for him because he came out and made poor decisions that day. Whether he was in his right mind, not in his right mind, he came out and had no intention of surrender. He had pulled his, what looked like you could tell he was going through something psychologically inside the house. Because as we finally got everyone out that was innocent, and it was just him and it had become a barricade, he started going into like almost a sentry patrol type march, like you might see at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, where they're doing a clear march back and forth. And he was going back and forth across that open threshold door and the window, which was well backlit. This is like 3 a.m. in nowhere Scottsdale, where it was dark. And all you could see was him on his patrol marching. And he had something slung over the shouldered over his, like it was a rifle, up over his shoulder as he was doing his march. He was somewhere else, man. I think I talked earlier in the show about my familiarity with that whole idea of flashbacks and being somewhere else through my father and what he dealt with. I mean, we ran through my neighborhood when I was 7 years old, running from the Viet Cong and looking for tripwires. And this is at 2 a.m, and so I could see in that instant, like, oh yeah, this guy's somewhere else. He's not dealing with this. I recognize this. He's not here with us. This is, I've seen this in my own father. This was my childhood. And so I'm watching this guy do this march. And again, just request after request. Hey, come on, surrender. We're here to help you. Come on out. And then eventually he appears in that doorway and he comes out, but he had no intention of surrender. The fight was on. And it took a bit to get him out far enough, close enough to us where we could see what he had, but he had disassembled his pool cue. And now he had it in both hands as a weapon, and he's going back and forth, like basically saying, fight's on. I'm coming for you right now. And so as he's starting to approach, I recognize, oh, well, I mean, this is an easy win for my dog, and this clearly meets our deployment requirements. And so I deployed my dog Raider, and just as my dog lunges up and latches on and bites him, I see him hit him in the chest and then go transfer to the bicep. And just as he does, boom, boom, 2 shots. And drops out of sight. I don't see the suspect anymore. I don't see my dog either. And so I think, man, what happened? Who did he have guns? Who shot? I couldn't figure out what had happened. And then as I stood up and kind of recognized that suspect was down and not moving, I see my dog kind of running in a circle. And so I call him back to me. I get him back to my side. He comes back, sits at my side. I'm watching suspect for a second to see if he moves. Realize that one of our other officers, who was sort of off to the side, had recognized that he was come with two large sticks and was about to get close to the contact team, and had made a decision to engage with deadly force because it also met the threshold for deadly force. It was a weird in between where my intermediate weapon, my canine, was a very good choice and use of force, but also it qualified for deadly force as well because he had deadly weapons and he was approaching officers and not listening to commands and clearly had intended to use them on us, like he was going to start taking swings at us. So the dog engaged, and just as he engaged, he never really got an opportunity to determine whether or not he would have been effective against the suspect because the two shots rang out. Well, one shot goes through the suspect's heart, and the other shot went through my dog's neck. And that neck wound, as it exited, ripped his carotid artery open. And so as the dog came back to my side and I realized suspect's dead, he's not moving, I start hearing a splashing sound. Man, what is that noise? I don't understand what that noise is. And I finally get him turned towards a one porch light that was sitting up on the garage because it was, again, pitch black dark. I couldn't see anything. And I see just a perfect steady stream of blood right with the heart rate. And it's just splashing. I said, well, that's a problem. Like he is hit good. So dog's perfect, right? He comes back, he's sitting at a heel, he's kind of looking at me like, wow, that was pretty wild, huh? Like, no effect. Doesn't seem to have any effect.
Yeah.
And so I realize he's shot. I run back to my car, which is probably a quarter mile up the road where my med kit was, because at the time we didn't really carry med kits on us. Now we do. So I was back at the car, and so I ran back with him. And seeing the crime scene photos afterwards the next day when they took aerial shots, I mean, it's a steady stream of blood all the way back. But it wasn't until we got back to the back of the car that the dog realized, oh, something's up here. Like, I don't feel so good. And he kind of goes down to his side and then goes down and lays all the way on his side. And now he's starting to kind of slow down quite a bit. I thought, oh crap, there's no way he lives through this. Like, it was opened up on one side. It was one of our PD rounds. It was a Talon round, so it went through, clean entry, but as it exits, huge open hole. And so I got my kit out. I started stuffing gauze inside and compacting the wound and putting pressure, and eventually got to a point where it was kind of holding pretty well, but every time I took pressure off, it started to flow. And so I couldn't drive to get him to a vet and hold the pressure. So finally I see this ambulance driver come back, goes, hey, that guy, he's dead. We can't help him, but can we help you? I said, yeah, give me a ride to the nearest emergency vet. So I jump in the ambulance, throw the dog on the stretcher, grab a big oxygen mask, and they didn't make Fido masks at the time, which are the dog oxygen masks. So I took the human mask and just kind of cupped it around his snout and turned the oxygen up to maximum so I could keep whatever blood was in him still flowing to his organs with a high level of oxygen to keep him going. And just held it there, and then they got me to the emergency vet. And this I'll never forget the doctor's face, who probably was sleeping in the back, and gets woken up by a rush of cops and a shot canine, and like, we're all in there, and so every time he opens up the wound, it flows too much. He couldn't figure out what to do with it. He's like, it's just a mangled mess. I can't see where the actual wound is. I can't find the artery. His vitals were kept crashing every time he opened up the thing. And so within a 3-hour period of being in that room, the doctor told me probably 5 or 6 times, like, hey, just say goodbye to him. Like, he's not going to make it through this. Those vitals are telling me he's not going to make it. And that damn dog just kept breathing. Like, he just wouldn't quit. And so you could see the blood was coming out almost pink, at that point, and somewhat clear because it was just a bunch of fluids kind of getting pumped into him. And he just, every time, just pulling air in. I thought, oh my goodness, man, this dog just won't die. Like, he's not going to die. So finally I look at the doctor like, hey, you might as well just go to work here because I don't think he has any interest in dying. So open it up and see what you can do. At the time, quick clot wasn't a big thing in the PD world. Was not a big thing. And it turns out this moment ended up being a big motivation for me and my influence on ALECA and kind of what we did to bring really high quality IFAC style medkits into the PD world, because they weren't a big thing. Our SWAT guys had them, and that was about it. Well, the SWAT guys got the word that we needed quick clot, and so they decentralized guys working at 4 a.m. all around the city started flying to the emergency vet, and so suddenly we had 5 or so packets of the old granular quick clot, and so we started cutting them open and just dumping them in the hole, and just one after another, just filling it up, granular quick clot, and eventually it cauterized everything. And so the doctor was like, yeah, I think it's slowed down enough. I'm going to give it a shot. And so he gets in there, he starts exploring, finally figures out where the carotid artery is, starts stitching. After an hour or 2 of surgery, he comes back out. He's like, hey, I think we got it. I think it's sealed up. We had dogs coming from all over the valley who had heard about what happened, and they were all donating blood. Fun fact, I found out that on a first transfusion, a dog can take any blood type. after first transfusion, you have to type their blood and get them the proper blood type. So they were just taking bags. And he had 75% of his total blood volume transfused back into him and survived
Yeah.
and lived and made it back to work. Zero aversion to gunfire, zero aversion to biting. I mean, the last thing he had done on a bite was get shot in the neck. And the first time I sent him to go do a bite on a suit, zero hesitation, jumped right on it. Just dog was just tough as hell. And he made a full recovery, made it back to work. It was a great story until summertime hit in Arizona. And it was 110 degrees one training night. And I could see he was just gassed from the beginning, like just laboring. And so I take him to the vet the next day, and he said, yeah, whatever damage occurred in here, it severed a nerve. And that nerve was responsible for his larynx, right? So those two big old flaps that dogs have that open up. So then their tongue's out, they get that great cooling. Well, he had laryngeal paralysis. That nerve never found a new pathway. So one side just stayed closed. So he had 50% of the cooling ability that a normal dog would have. So every time he worked, he overheated. He got way too hot. And it was only a matter of time he was going to get heat stroke. So the happy ending to that story was getting him to retirement, getting a new dog, letting him live out his life with me at home, became more like my wife's dog, and just became a cool, fun house dog that actually ended up socializing pretty well with the kids. He loved swimming, so all he could do for exercise was swim because it was the only thing that didn't overheat him. So he would just do laps and just burn off that Malinois energy nonstop doing laps until we finally forced him to come out, and then we'd dry him off and he'd go lay down and relax. But that was how he lived out his days and ended up passing away at about, I think he was 11, maybe 12 years old when he passed away. So I ended up having a pretty full life, but I mean, just so tough. What a tough dog.
Yeah, mate. There's 1,000 things in that story I could pull out of there. Did you say that was your first canine deployment?
That was my, would have been my third bite with that dog, but it was I was in my second year of canine.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say that is one hell of a first bite.
Mm-hmm.
Who trained the dog, man? Was there someone specific, like an agency or an organization
So
that trained the dog?
the way we do it is we try to get dogs that are titled if possible, but at least have foundational like European dog sport training.
Mm.
So whether it be from Holland or Germany or Czech Republic, France, like we go to vendors. We don't anymore in Scottsdale. Well, that's a different story. But typically, the way the system works is we go to a vendor here in the States who has already done all the tour de Europe to go to all these dog training sites and pick out the dogs that they want, make the purchase from the handler, because we find that dog sport foundation, it transitions really well for police work. So they already know good obedience, right? They already know how to search for human. They already know how to bite and release. That foundation's great. We can transition that really fast. We know that they can pass a courage test, which is probably the one most critical thing that is a difference between our dogs and your typical pet, is our dogs have this like outrageous level of courage that's just unnatural to a dog. Most dogs should have some sense of self-preservation and want to avoid an encounter with a human. Our dogs don't care. It doesn't matter what the threat is. They're going to engage. And that's the unnatural part. And that's what we search for in our dogs.
Mm-hmm.
So that part has been done for us. We just have to transition them into police work. So we have to introduce flashbangs and sirens and, slick floors and automatic doors at shopping centers. All these things that a dog might look at and go, what is that? I don't know about that. Like, I'm not sure. And get them through that. And then we basically so we bring them over into the States. We import them, get them through a basic academy, which could be anywhere from 5 weeks to 8 weeks for patrol work. Teach them how to go search, area search, building search, do suspect apprehensions, article search for evidence. And then once that's all been done, get them a certification, which we do annually. And then that dog is 10-8 and he's hitting the road. And then you can usually add, for the dual purpose dogs, you add some sort of detection element after that. So whether it be a narcotics dog or you end up getting an EOD dog, and then you add that for another 8 weeks worth of academy to add the odors for detection. And then you got a pretty good little team.
Yeah. I was going to say, man, that's like what a dog, man. Like you got to imagine the foundations that have gone into that. But yeah, and I know there's a bigger debate to be had. Not that I care about sport dogs in operational roles and stuff. But yeah, man, some of those European vendors do the dogs that they provide are just next level. I mean, getting shot, like I don't know, man. There's a lot of work you got to do a dog can just recover like that from being shot in the neck.
That dog, there was nothing about training for that moment for that dog. It was everything about his toughness and his genetics. I mean, that dog was just never had, and he never did have any quit in him, not once. Like from the beginning, you could just tell he was just the perfect police dog. That's exactly what you want. A dog that just has no quit.
What was his
He had
name?
Raider.
Raider. Yeah, sweet.
Raider. Yeah.
I can share that to Raider, man.
Yeah.
And the other thing you were talking about was, having that appreciation for the person that's inside the house, using your own experiences and stuff. As you've sort of progressed in your police career, and you've probably gone through some personal stuff as well, some personal development outside work and whatnot. Do you find that enhances your policing abilities? So your ability to see through stress, for example, maybe take a bit of a broader appreciation for a situation, so that you're not, tunnel vision, just shooting someone we don't need to, deploying the dog every 5 minutes when you don't have to. Do you find that enhances your capability as a police officer?
Yeah. And I think, regardless of kind of how you're dealing with some of your own trauma or personal life issues, there's just something about maturing in police work that you do kind of have a bit of a different perspective. I've noticed that in everybody that I work with, as we've all grown. You work with the same guys. You come into this job and everybody's working weekend nights together, just hard charging, trying to go after everything, and doing good police work still. But certainly it's just like a, hey, let's just go get them kind of mentality, and maybe doing things that weren't always like the most tactically sound or safe, but it was just about catching the bad guy. But then you get 5 years in your career, 10 years in your career, and suddenly you get a little more experience, you live a little bit more life, and yeah, for sure, you start to see a little bit more of a slowdown, a step back. Let me start to process this a little bit more. And I don't mean to slow down in the sense that you don't react as quick. I just mean you slow down in your decision making, as far as what decisions you make. You still process things just as quick, and you're a sound decision maker, but the route you would take or the decision of using force or not using force, I mean, it changes as the maturity comes in and you experience a few more things in your career. I mean, we joke all the time about marijuana became legal during my career out here in Arizona. So there was a time where we used to go to parties or we'd go to apartments and people would call in because of the smell of marijuana, burning marijuana. Well, back in the day, the smell of burning marijuana was considered justification to do a crisis entry into a house without a search warrant because it was destruction of evidence. And so that's how you justify it. You just go pushing their door in and force your way in their home and then start grabbing all their pot and taking their pot from them. And you'd see all these guys sitting there like, hey, man, like, we're just having fun on a Friday.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're destroying evidence. This is a felony. And we were all fired up, man. Like, you dirty felons. Like, no, they're just having a good time. And, it's so interesting to think that we did that back in those days. Just started running into bedrooms and going into back rooms, not knowing who was behind that door and what we could have encountered. But it was just so critical just to stop the burning of that evidence and get that felony arrest. And then now we walk past people all the time. They're smoking a joint, and it's like, whatever. It's not something that people are really concerned about all that much anymore. But yeah, so times change, right? And sometimes it's you that changes, but sometimes it's just your political environment changes. And marijuana is a great example of that. Like, there's no way we're going into a house anymore for the smell of burning marijuana. Not in a million years. It's not even justified. It wouldn't even be legal.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting, man, because I guess that's something you don't really think about. I mean, my father-in-law was a cop in New Zealand back in the day, 80s, 90s, old school, full handlebar moustache kind of thing, right? Detectives.
Super cool.
And mate, they used to do they'd fly in suspended insertion under a helicopter into these marijuana crops, get in a gunfight with some fucking criminal organization, burn all the crops, and then the helicopter would suspended extract them out of there. I mean, to go from that, or what you're talking about, making an entry without a warrant and whatnot, legally justified, to then dudes just smoking up at the street. Do you ever feel that there's like a sense of betrayal in the sense that you're like, hey, you guys had us risking our life before, executing warrants and whatnot, or pursuing all these people? Is there a sense that you've been like a backstabbing, so to speak, or betrayed like that?
No, I wouldn't say it's that feeling so much. I wouldn't say it feels like betrayal. I mean, there are times where I'll speak for all cops, feel betrayed by legislators. I don't think that's one of like that's an honest moment. That's a moment where the people spoke. Democracy worked, right? Like, okay, it was illegal at the time. We enforced the law as we were supposed to, and then everybody got together and said, "Hey, we think this should be legal." And they elected people who would push that legislation through, and the legislation passed, and the majority spoke, and now it's legal. That felt clean. That felt neat. That felt justified. It didn't feel like betrayal at all. But there's definitely been times where I've seen politicians who pass certain laws, whether it's an immigration related law or if it's, you know, they pass certain laws where they want to do heavy enforcement in certain neighborhoods regarding, high crime areas, um, and then once things, if something were to go bad, they suddenly want to cut you loose. And it's the same legislators that were voting for some sort of heavy enforcement within a certain group to go find narcotics violations, and it suddenly would be the first ones in front of the camera saying, I can't believe all this violence, these cops that are in these inner cities going after, some of our less fortunate, lower socioeconomic groups. It's like, man, you voted for that law. You voted for that act. That was your work. Um, we take your marching orders. You put the laws in the book, and we just go out and enforce them. That's when you feel a little bit of betrayal. But no, when it comes to the marijuana, not so much. That was democracy at work. That's fine. Times change. I'm good with it. Laws always change. We get legal updates every year, being told that this law changed, or this one's you know has a higher threshold now. This one has a lower threshold. We make adjustments. That's our job.
Yeah, no, that's a good. I think that's a healthy way to look at least that one anyway. And dude, you're also you mentioned earlier, well, yesterday actually, that the canine capability is that attached to the SWAT capability, or do you have to apply and then be like a SWAT certified handler? Because your guys SWAT over there is a little bit like here. We have they're called police tactical groups, and they're full time units. So you do like a selection course and like a big training cycle and stuff, and that's where you are. But I know you guys run SWAT a little bit differently, SWAT and attachments.
Yeah, yeah. Every city's a little bit different when it comes to that. In our city, I'll speak for us. Um, the way we operate is every one of our canine teams should be capable of operating with our SWAT team. We have 6 dual purpose canines in our city, and we do have 2 full squads of a full time SWAT team and some decentralized guys as well. So if we go out on operation, any one of our dogs, our goal is to get them up to that level where they're capable of working, but our handler needs to be up to that level as well. And there was a time when we used to send all our guys through SWAT school. So like I went through SWAT school and had to get through it and actually, pass it. But we didn't go through a selection process. We don't go through their like in-service like FTO type training, field training that they do through SWAT, where they have to actually go out on several missions and get quizzed and tested, and then end up finally earning their spot permanently. So we skip that portion, and we basically just go through the SWAT school, and then get through that, prove that we have the capability to keep up with our SWAT team, and then we go back to running canine. We just do canine stuff, and then eventually work our way into some SWAT training days and get into a point where our dog is like, yeah, he's blessed. That dog's ready to run with the SWAT team. He's had a few bites. He's, really good around the team. He doesn't engage officers. He understands the job. Like, let's put him to work. He's good to go. There's other agencies that I know of that, they don't run their canine with their SWAT team unless the handler himself was previously an operator and ran with the SWAT team. And so some of those guys have to be previous operators that now take a dog and then go back and work with the SWAT team. And I'm sure there's more familiarity there, but I mean, at this point in my career, I feel pretty comfortable running with our SWAT team, and I've never been a full-time operator with them.
Mm.
So, yeah,
So
different
did
schools of
you
thought,
ever? Sorry, go ahead.
different schools of thought about how to do that, but it's worked well for us, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Because like I was sort of saying, our police tactical groups or SWAT equivalent here is like they're like special forces. You know what I mean? They've got all the Gucci stuff and then all the training and
Hmm.
whatnot, your selection course and whatnot. And so if you're SWAT qualified, and you also have a canine, are you able to jump in the stack, say minus your dog, and go and be an operator, or you're just a canine handler and you've always got the dog, and then you can jump in SWAT with the dog if you need?
So ideally, we'd always be canine handler, but um, in the world we live in with a whole long period of time where we were running pretty short and we were having a bunch of hiring issues and SWAT team. I mean, business goes on, crime doesn't stop, and so there was a period of time where we were taking roles with our SWAT team and in some of these missions and filling gaps, whether it be on Overwatch in the armor or if we were in the backyard team and covering backyard. But we have to prove that we're capable of moving with our SWAT team. So we can, if need be, jump in the stack and also clear. I mean, that's the expectation. We work NVGs with our dogs and with the team, so we've done a few different trainings with them where we know how to operate with them in darkness, and the dog loves it. I mean, the dogs work so efficient in darkness. It's beautiful to watch on NVGs and see how you take away their eyes and they become better because they completely trust their nose. They 100% go nose, and they see everything with their nose. They can just smell their way through an entire building, and they solve the problem so quick. It's really beautiful. I wish we could run in darkness with them all the time. But yeah, so yeah, the expectation is you can run at that level. You can do the same things they can do, you know.
Yeah. That was some of my favourite stuff when with the dogs, man, was working at night because obviously,
Yeah.
majority of the work we do in SF is night stuff. So they're 100%, man. Yeah, I'm just watching the dogs and stuff moving around the rooms or whatever. Or sometimes you can see something first, but they haven't quite seen it because of their nose. So,
Yeah.
so dude, in terms of the being on the SWAT team, is that mostly just like call and call out sort of stuff, or is there a fair bit of action involved in that? What's the life like with the SWAT stuff?
Yeah, again, when I was doing it, we kind of spread the love amongst our whole unit. Like I said, all six of us should be capable of running with the team. Me being day shift, Canine, it works out real well. If we have pre-planned mission work where we're going to go out and serve a search warrant in the morning, I mean, it works well for a guy like myself and one of the other daytime guys to just get up early, head out at 4 in the morning and go to briefing and then go hit the house or the business or wherever we're going by 5:30 or 6, and then go change clothes and go start your shift, get your overtime and start your shift. If there's stuff that's kind of on short notice or it's a call out at night, our nighttime guys, they're capable, right? But if they need help, they'll call one of us. They'll say, hey, I'm on this thing. It's getting pretty big. I'm going to need another dog to come out. And one of us will suit up and come from home and come join up at night. But yeah, so we're just kind of sitting there with the phone, waiting for a call, waiting to see what comes up. But the pre-planned stuff is easy, right? We just schedule it. We usually get, 24 hours notice and then just get a couple dogs assigned to the team and go out on operations when they need us. And then the stuff that pops up kind of on a spur because a call turned into a patrol call turns into a SWAT call, then it just goes out to everybody, and whoever's working will go, but whoever's at home that can help out can head out too.
Do you have any favourite SWAT jobs, especially like recently, like
Oh,
a sort of later part of your career?
gosh. It's funny with the SWAT stuff. It's like, it seems like it'd be exciting, but so much of what we do is so pre-planned. When I was hot and heavy and I was like the primary SWAT dog, it felt like I just had the worst luck. I mean, everybody surrendered. Everybody was a perfect angel when they did surrender. There was like a 6-year period where I never really got a bite with that team because it was so methodical how we worked. It was so perfectly planned. There was so much um, uh, sort of advanced equipment that we could use to kind of induce surrenders, and tactics that we used that would induce surrenders. And so, the patrol stuff is where it was at. But gosh, I mean, that one that we did that I was talking about where the guy was over top with us, that ended up being that was with the SWAT team because they ended up coming out for that because that ended up being kind of more extended after the shooting occurred. It still took quite a while, so we ran with them. That was a good one. Trying to think if there's anything recently. Not a ton recently. I mean, like I said, we get nice surrenders. I think typically with them. I think the way we do business on our side, which is like a surround and call out, typically surround and call out, it doesn't lend itself to anything too wild unless somebody comes out and eventually, or they choose not to come out, and we will eventually get boots inside the house. But if when someone steps out, we have so many tools at our disposal to try and apprehend them. I think it was one of my coworkers this past weekend that had a pretty nice deployment with them, where the guy came out, but he was kind of playing possum and wouldn't keep his hands all the way up and started looking back towards the house after he finally came out after something very extended. And there's a nice video drone footage of the deployment where the dog leaps up and grabs onto the guy just as some impact munitions are hitting him, and then ends up dragging him all the way back out of the garage towards us. So that wasn't me, but that was a nice deployment that just happened this past weekend. That was with our SWAT guys.
Yeah, nice, man. Was that Derek?
Yeah, yeah,
It was.
it was.
Oh,
Yeah,
sweet. I
yeah.
want to. I want to get. I'm going to harass him. I'm going to sleaze him onto the podcast at some point too, mate.
Oh
So,
man, yeah. You want a guy that'll tell war stories? Yeah, he loves coming on. He loves sitting around telling war stories about this deployment or that deployment. He's had some good ones too. He said
yeah, yeah.
he's had some really good ones over the
It's
years.
funny.
Yeah.
I've seen his socials and stuff, and mate, he's just amongst it, eh? He loves it, man.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
the training coordinator now for the state. So we had Mike Miller, who I think you met when you
yeah,
came
yeah, yeah.
out.
Mike's great,
That
dude. Oh, mate, I got time for Mike.
solid, yeah, and a ton of stuff. I mean, you talk about a guy that has dealt with some personal issues and gone through, I mean, the worst of the worst, and has come out the other side. He's just retiring this month. He's going to be retiring,
Is he?
which is why he's no longer a training coordinator, but he's moving to
Tell
Florida.
Mike I'm coming for him too, man.
You should. I mean, you talk about a good guy for this podcast. He'd be perfect. Perfect.
Yeah,
But yeah, so we put Derek in the training coordinator spot. So now he's helping to put all the training on for the whole state of Arizona for our canines. So
yeah. That's a good segue, man. Because I want to hear a bit about ALECA, man, going into like you becoming the president, your priorities, that type of stuff. Hit me with what ALECA is, and then I want to know how you became president, Mr.
yeah,
President.
ALECA, the Arizona Law Enforcement Canine Association. We use acronyms obviously in our world, right? Your world and our world. TEES, TEES. Training, equipment, education, support. That's the mission. Training's always number one. We're always going to make training number one. When you came out, that classroom portion prior to trials was the training for that event. We have high risk deployment school that we do in the south part of the state, and then we do another one in the north part of the state, one in fall, one in spring. And that's all SWAT based scenarios, 2 days of it, usually 8 scenarios per night, limited to about 25 dog teams. Prerequisite, your dog should already be SWAT capable because you are going to get a lot more advanced type scenarios. So you might be rappelling off the side of buildings, you might be doing flashbangs into tunnels and doing subterranean deployments. I mean, it's like we're really pushing the limits of the dog for that training. Um, and then survival seminar, which is up in Prescott in July because it's hot as hell in Phoenix in July. So we move everybody up to Prescott and get about 65 dog teams through, again, 2 days of scenarios, about 8 scenarios per night, about an hour each. And it's an opportunity for guys to get a crap load of really good work and good training in the middle of the summer when we're normally dying to get good training because it's just so hot down in the valley. So we head up to the North Country and where it's a little cooler and just have a blast. I mean, some really, really good stuff. And the focus around survival seminar typically involves a lot of medical implementation. So having your IFAC kit on you, making sure that you have your tourniquet with you, and then that scenario, not always, but usually has some sort of component where either the dog is injured, you're injured, and then you have to deal with your problem, use the proper tactics, good decision making. Obviously, everything we do is reality-based training, so we're going to induce a lot of stress and force people to make decisions under stress. And then once that opportunity to use or make a decision has come and you've done whatever it is you're going to do, it may be that we say also your dog was shot. And we have really good training equipment that we bring with us, including this Canine Diesel, which is like this really realistic, lifelike looking dog that you can make have vital signs. Did you see him? Seen him before?
I've seen it before. Yeah, the
Yeah.
guys at my old work got it. Like cries and shit. Like it looks hectic,
It
man.
whines, it growls. Yeah, you have to follow the process because someone's controlling it. If you're not doing like muzzle the dog first, you're going to get a growl. Because Fluffy, you may think Fluffy loves you, but Fluffy may bite the shit out of you if he's hurt and he's in survival
Yeah,
mode. So it's getting your medical muzzle out, snapping it on the dog, doing your assessment, figuring out where the wound is, what type of wound, getting out your kit that we've created because we have these specialized kits that ALECA makes every year that we essentially designed with the help of one of our really talented uh, officers, now lieutenants, former SWAT guy, Dan Green, that works for our department. He came up with the idea of getting this giant IFAC kit off the front of your vest that gets in the way and gets caught on fences you can't jump and gets hooked on your seatbelt. And we vacuum seal all the same stuff flat and then stick it up underneath the vest. And so it's always there. You don't leave it back at the car anymore when you need it. So you can strip it out from the bottom of your vest, rip it open, get the gear out, and go to work. But Yeah, you assess the dog after the tactics have been used, and then you have to do, rescue on your dog, or you may have to do rescue on your partner who goes down, who's got a gunshot wound to the leg. Do proper application of a tourniquet, and maybe that's not even the end of the scenario. Maybe then you got to fight your way out. So really good training and stuff that we put on through our survival seminar as well. So those are our four main, and now with Derek coming in, we're talking about some expansion and doing some more training, but it's our number one. Equipment is a big part of what we do because equipment could be anything from some podunk agency out in the outskirts of the state with no real source of revenue. Maybe they can't afford a good harness. Maybe they don't.
Po-
Maybe they can't even get leashes.
Podunk?
Like, yeah, podunk is a term for like in the sticks, in the middle of nowhere.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a new one, I guess, for you. So if that
Start using
agency has no, yeah, start bringing it to Australia. Um, so if they can't afford equipment, we'll step in. We'll find the money. We'll get in the proper equipment because as this is very close to your heart with Origin, like we're not going to let you run substandard equipment. We're not going to have harnesses that are breaking and dogs are cutting loose, and we're not going to let your vehicle go without a heat alarm in Arizona. I mean, that technology is too good. So if your agency can't afford it, we'll find the money. We're not going to let dogs die in hot cars. I mean, we're past that. I mean, the equipment exists. You can't say money was the issue, so we'll find the money. Um, so yeah, the equipment may be the dog. We've had agencies reach out and the budget doesn't even allow them to replace the dog that's retiring. If that's the case, we'll find the money. We'll get your dog replaced. We'll get you 15 grand. We'll get you out to a vendor and we'll get you a new dog. We do everything we can to keep our industry one to the highest level of training because it's such a high liability unit. But we're always going to have them well equipped. We're always going to make sure the proper selection is occurring with the dogs. We're going to become we will be the hub, which is the support side, right? Support is kind of the big umbrella, it's everything. And so we'll be the hub of all information sharing. So we're going to share knowledge, whether it be through training, whether it be through people taking their standard operating procedures, their general orders, their manuals, their training documents. Everything will be uploaded to our website so the members can all go in and access. So that if Avondale wants to know what Phoenix is doing, if Phoenix wants to know what Scottsdale's doing, they can all go to our website and pull up each other's training logs and see what it is we're doing so that if we have we're following best practices. We want to make sure we establish best practices so we never see any agency fall behind because they're in isolation and they don't train with anybody else. So we keep the state sort of on the same page. That's our role. The education side, that's this. It's canine demos. It's going on the news as I do so often and talk about what we do and what our job is all about. Our very specialized career of running a canine and police work, and just getting people educated. It goes back to the canine trials. Canine trials is our single biggest educational event, and I think we got into that pretty in depth about why that is. But that's how we get the public the knowledge and that knowledge to understand what it is we do and no longer be deceived by things they hear or see that maybe are untrue.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and so as you've become president, that's just the ALECA extent? That's just what it is, or have you done a lot to develop it to be what it is today?
So that everything I mentioned there was part of the development. What Alika was before I arrived, and believe me, like all credit to all previous board members, everyone I've ever had alongside me. If any of them are listening to the podcast, uh, a million thanks because none of this would have happened without the team effort that occurred. So don't get me wrong. Like, yeah, I may have shown up and tried to revive the organization and try to give it a direction and be that captain that sort of drove the ship in one direction. But we had a ton of people get on board. And man, you think about my executive board I have now, such a talented group. I mean, we've done so much done in these past couple of years because of the group we have now. So a lot of credit to them. But yes, so when I arrived about 10 years ago, we were basically in bad standing with the business bureau here locally. There had
Sorry,
been
ALECA
no
was, or the,
Alika was,
or
yeah, there was
okay,
no
gotcha.
financial reporting that was occurring. There was no contact with Corporation Commission, who handles all the LLCs. The Corporation Commission is who keeps track of all the businesses here. They had no responses coming from us. Yeah, the money. Um, so they thought we were defunct. And in a way, we kind of were. No one was driving the ship. No one was really at the helm. we were in danger of losing our 501c3 status, which is what the IRS designates your organization as, so that you can be a tax deductible organization, so we can receive donations, and it's a benefit to the donor, which is obviously how we survive. That's how we make our money. That's how we do the things that we do. And Circle K is our number one. And you know that when you came out here, like the work they've done, shout out to them, because man, they started out in year one giving us about 30 grand because they just loved what we did. And then we had meeting after meeting and started making more of a partnership. I mean, to date, they probably give us over $200,000 a year to keep our mission going. So, huge shout out to them. But, but yeah, so that had all been washed away. We were in danger of losing the whole organization. And so, came in and kind of got things going again, reestablished communications. We weren't talking to any of the members. Members didn't know if we still existed. And so the year 1 and 2 were just all about, uh, it was like a full remodel. We gutted the house, right? Everything was, the walls were falling in, the roof was collapsing. So it was a full gut job, right? And we started getting at least the foundation right again. And then once the foundation was right, we started thinking, okay, where can we take this? How much motivation do we have behind us? How many other people want to help us make this happen? Because it can't be on one or two people. Myself and Andrew Carlson, who is currently director of operations for us, and the previous president, who you met as well, he and I kind of did that together. That was him and I doing all this together. So the two of us, if we hadn't been so motivated to make ALECA what it is today, and create a mission, it wouldn't have happened. It would have gone defunct. We would have walked away. But I think that motivation we had, it became infectious, and then people started to realize just what a benefit ALECA is, for all the reasons I just mentioned about making us better at our job, and everyone jumped on board. And we've never had more interaction with our members and more support than we've had in these past couple of years. I mean, we got people coming from all around the state saying, "You guys are doing such great work. How can I help? What can I do? I want to be an instructor. I want to come out and help with the next training. What do you guys need from me?" And man, what an amazing thing we can accomplish when we see so many people jumping in and wanting to be a part of it. I mean, it's rolling now. So yeah, creating that vision was, I think, a big part of myself and Andrew and the rest of the board that has come and gone over the years. He and I being kind of the mainstays over the past 10 years. It's been the two of us. But then bringing everybody else in around us over the years to help out. Really, it's just been incredible work, and we're not done. We have bigger dreams still. We got more to do. We talked offline about, the upcoming TV show and being able to put the unique nature of our job on display for the world. You talk about making people fall in love with cops and changing that narrative and changing the dialogue. Let people start to see us coming home with our dogs and how they interact here at the house, and how my dog right now is probably over there hanging out with my daughter and getting belly rubs, but we go to work and he'll bite the shit out of somebody, right? He does amazing work. Is he vicious? No, he's no vicious. He's not vicious. He's just a great working dog who's well balanced and has a job and loves his job and lives to work. Would rather do nothing else than work. He loves it. But he's amazing here at home. So people will hopefully get to see that on the show. We kind of wanted to make the show more almost like a Hard Knocks, because we want the end of the show to be at the canine trials, where that dog that you're following through the whole season comes at the very end and competes. And so you'll follow him through training, through home life, through injuries, through apprehensions. You'll see him at work, going out and doing his job. And then here comes canine trials, right? And at canine trials, all of a sudden, they come up to the competition, and then you're rooting for your dog. You're like, man, come on. He's got to do it. I hope he can do it, man. I want that dog to succeed. I like him so much. You get that personal connection to him. And from whatever city. He may be a Scottsdale dog, maybe Peoria. And then see how the show expands from there. But I think that's a great way to do the education side of our mission. But then also, just win people over and change the narrative, which is what I think we have. I mentioned, which was yesterday, but earlier in this podcast, we realized we could do that, right? That we had the power to do that through ALECA, that we could actually take control of the narrative ourselves and start to change things, and at the lowest level, right? Which is where we are. So yeah, big things are coming, man. We're hoping to do that. We're hoping, as we continue to increase our funding and bring more money in, we want to see the ability to do more of the support side of our mission. We want to be able to start to offer maybe some retirement coverage for our dogs. Because fun fact, once they get retired, they become ours, and they don't become the city's anymore. And that financial burden now falls on that officer and his family. And so we'd love to be able to pay for the dog food and the vet bills. We'd love to take care of all that we can make that happen. Requires more money, so we're going to go after the money and try to accomplish that. Um, and ultimately, we really love to see a training facility. We have plans to build a training facility that we've had in our hands now for probably 6 years. And if there ever came a day that we reach that funding mark, one of the first things we'd do is break ground on a new state training facility for canines that would be state of the art. And every agency within the valley, every member agency could just go online, book their day, and go down and use it for the whole day and just have a blast and train in a very safe way. So, like I said, lots of big plans, lots of big things happening. You know,
Yeah, that's a lot, man. And stepping back a little bit, the Desert Dog Trials and the Survival Seminar Prescott. Did you introduce that, or was that already going on?
so the Desert Dog Trials used to be a much smaller event. It was held, the very first one ever was held at a high school, and it was a bunch of the families just showed up. And I think it was a bunch of, I like using some of your guys' terminology. I'm picking up on some of your guys' language. Bunch of guys, cops getting, pissed drunk. Is it pissed drunk, right? Uh,
Pissed. Yeah.
Pissed, yeah, getting pissed.
Maggot.
And
Yep. All the above.
yeah, and talking shit to each other. And my dog bites harder than yours. No, my dog jumps further than yours. And so they said, let's go settle it. We'll
Let's go
put
to
a
the
little
desert.
competition together. Yeah. So they went to a Phoenix high school and they put a little competition together. And I think it was probably mostly just the families that came
Yeah,
and a
yeah.
few dogs. And that was like Desert Dog Trials 1. That was the first one. A few years were missed in there just because some things didn't get picked up, but it went to some baseball stadiums after that. Maybe brought in 1,000 people for the weekend. Maybe 15 to 20 vendors was the best we could do. And then when I jumped in, I thought, man, we got this great facility out at Westworld, which you went to, right? You saw that. If anybody kind of more on a national level ever watches like the Barrett Jackson Auto Auction, that's where they host the Barrett Jackson Auto Auction is out at Westworld. So it's a huge facility, and we thought, man, if we grow this thing, we could probably fill this place up. And so it's meant to be a rodeo arena, and then it has an attached large like exhibition warehouse. I think it's like, geez, 30,000 square feet or something like that, maybe more, 50,000 square
Massive, man.
feet,
Yeah,
huge.
yeah.
And so we said, man, if we do this, we could probably grow this thing pretty big. So now we're getting 6 or 7 thousand people on a weekend, and we're going to grow that every year. And we're filling up the vendor hall with 100 and so, maybe 120 vendors from all different walks of life. But again, all of those people, those vendors are meant to come out, engage the public, talk about their product, talk about what they sell to the police, why they sell that product to the police, what they use it for. Very hands-on. We want the kids climbing all over the equipment. We'll bring all the equipment out, the armor, the rook, the sniper rifles. Like
The
kids are
Rook.
coming out
Yes.
and just learning everything about our equipment and sitting on it, taking pictures. The helicopters come out, the robots, the drones. So it's like I said earlier in the podcast, it's a public safety extravaganza. We even bring our buddies, the firefighters out, because, what would it be like
You
if
get
we
a
didn't have
thrown
them?
bone, man. The forest. They're
Yeah.
probably, mate. They're either sleeping, they're doing an online course or something. That yeah, man.
They can't play video games all day. They can come out and hang out with the public. And besides, they know how to cook. So, maybe they could whip something up while we're hanging out and make us some
Man, they're
good food.
cooking. Spend all the time cooking, man. They must be good cooks.
I love our firefighters, man. We all will give each other a hard time, but they're good dudes. But yeah,
Yeah.
so the firefighters come out and they bring their equipment, and National Guard comes out, military attends. And so, like I said, public safety extravaganza, and everybody gets to enjoy themselves and just learn a ton. And so that's what the trials has become. It wasn't that until we kind of had that vision that we wanted to see it grow and become that. And it's to our benefit because now it's gotten the attention that it deserves of, potentially being a TV show this coming year. And so that's pretty huge.
When you say TV show, you're talking about like Netflix series or like a local, 7 o'clock spot kind of thing.
We're talking probably more like Netflix, like streaming. Yeah, it's we've been talking to the production company we're working with has been hitting all the streaming networks. They've been hitting all the sort of legacy networks as well. I'm learning so much. Like again, I never thought in a million years I'd start to learn about how TV shows are made, but man, I've been schooled up over the past couple of years trying to make this happen. So that whole world is changing because in the old days it was like you pitch a TV show to a network. The network says, "I love the idea. Here's $1 million. Go make it." And then you bring back a TV show and they air it. These days they want to take less risk. So apparently the way it works is these streaming networks like when you show up and all the funding is already there. You've already paid and had the TV show made. It's edited, it's in the can, and it's ready to go. Then you bring it to the network execs over at Hulu or Netflix or whoever and say, hey, check it out. Here's this show. We think it's a good one. And they watch it and they go, yeah, we like it. We'll buy it for this many dollars. And then they take it. Or they go, yeah, we hate it. It's not really for us. And you go
Yeah.
off to
Over to
the
Amazon
next
Prime or
network.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I'm learning all like, gosh, there's two different ways to do this. One involves fronting the money yourselves, and that's going to be a whole other task. So we're working through all that. There's still some traditional sort of show making happening, and so the production team has been reaching out to those networks and trying to make it happen. So stay tuned. I'll let you know if it hopefully gets picked up, and then we're making a show this year. That'd be cool.
That'd be sick, man. Yeah. Don't forget about the
Yeah,
little people, the Australians that have helped you and build the foundation of what ALECA is today.
100%. 100%. You know we will. Yeah.
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 Dude, so what about oh, actually I got two questions, but I'll start with one of them. So you obviously when I came out, gave the talk, that was crisis, that's that sort of stuff, mental health, etc. Is that always the theme for the speaker at the Desert Dog Trials, or do you have different themes, different speakers?
No, we change it up. That was another one of mine that I think about 5 years ago or so. I was just starting to see more and more of our guys going down for mental injury, emotional injury. I thought, man, this job really takes its toll. I guess I could see how this could happen. I hadn't really experienced my kind of intense moment yet, where I realized I wasn't okay, and so I could kind of foresee, like, man, this really comes for us in this job, and I know the nature of our job kind of already lends itself to experiencing extra trauma, and you're exposed to things that maybe humans shouldn't see in a lifetime. And so I was paying attention, and then I realized, like, we could do more. Like, that S in our T's acronym is support. Support's that all encompassing. Support is mental health support. That's part of that. So why don't we start normalizing this? Why don't we start showing guys that, there's people out there that you can ask for help from. There's people experiencing the same thing as you. So it's not comfortable. When you came out and did your talk, and you even warned the guys, like, hey, some of this shit's going to be uncomfortable, but we're going to talk about it. Like, we can be open in this room. And you see guys squirm in their seat. I've had you come out and multiple others, and people will squirm, and that's okay, right? Like, and sometimes they raise their hand and they want to engage, and sometimes they sit there with their hand in their lap and say, absolutely not. Like, I have no problems, and no one in this room will ever find out, even if I did. But then it's afterwards where guys are getting phone calls and text messages, like our instructors. And I don't know if you experience that with our guys, but they reach out after the fact and say, hey, man, I think I need help. Like, what kind of resources you got for me? Like, where could I go? And the agencies are doing a great job too. But there's something different about, in our setting with our canine guys, there's some sort of extra sort of connection or relation to whatever you're experiencing, and there's another level of comfort where you feel like you can reach out and get that help. And I don't care if one dude were to reach out in the whole 5 years we've been focusing on mental health. Great, one dude got saved. One dude was able to get the help he needs, or gal, and not kill themselves, not kill themselves slowly with alcohol abuse or other substances,
And
not
the
destroy their
career,
whole
get
family.
divorced,
Yeah,
isolate from the
yeah,
kids. Yeah, yeah.
yep. If it was one person out of the 5 or so years, 6 years we've been bringing out mental health specialists as guest speakers, if it were one, I'd be proud of it. But it's been way more than that. It's been way more than that. And so we'll just keep doing it. We'll keep focusing on it, and guys will keep getting help, and then we'll survive this career, because it's funny, we retire around 20, and I saw a lot of guys right around that 15 to 20 year mark where it catches up with them. And so you think, man, you work all that time for that pension, like, you better enjoy it. You better have many, many years of collecting that paycheck for the rest of your life, having your family, taking vacations. I mean, you earned it. So, let's suffer like we're supposed to, like, I'm stealing a little bit from my pastor from this past Sunday, but he started getting into suffering, and suffering being a part of life, and how many characters in the Bible were called upon, and not to get too preachy, but like, they were called upon by God, and they spent some serious time suffering after they were called upon by God. But you can suffer well, right? You can suffer in a better way. if you know how, if you know what to focus on, if you know how to do it. And so, yeah, so I think we can kind of make that our focus as we start to help guys out. Like, yeah, we've seen some hard stuff. You're going to have some things that will stick with you. And it could be from work, it could be from personal life, it could be from your childhood. But, there is a way to live a very happy, healthy life, even with all that in your background.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you're talking about feedback. I remember I had a lot of conversations, a lot of people that over the weekend after the presentation and whatnot, and even since then, man. And some of it was implied, and some of it was very deliberate and direct. But yeah, man, that I think that it's so important, man, because yeah, like, especially at that dinner and stuff, I had some really good chats, man.
Yeah.
But dude, I want to talk about you just for a minute. Now you've obviously beginning of the podcast talking about your childhood and stuff, and a few challenges there, and then couple of specific things in your career, but what about considering you've gone through you've had a pretty intense, interesting career, a few things in your personal life. Can you just sort of walk us through that process of when things started to change a bit from you? And I asked this in the context that you are still doing that job. You are still kicking doors. You're still out there. You still got your family. You're still, running ALECA. Like your life didn't end. Your job didn't end. Yeah, I want to know a bit more about what you went through and what you've learned, I guess.
Yeah. And what I'm going through. I mean, you talk about still working. Yeah, I'm still working. I'm still working on me too,
Mm.
And you made that comment about how, yeah, you're still with Alika and you're still in your career. As of the making of the airing of this podcast, nothing has imploded yet. I'm still doing everything,
Yeah.
but I
We'll
don't I
do an
don't think it
update
will.
one. It'll be a great comeback
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, right. So maybe I'm still waiting. There may be another podcast in a few years where I talk about how the everything fell apart and then I had to rebuild.
Yeah,
As of
Tony,
right now,
the guy that ruined ALECA.
yeah,
There he is.
yep. As of right now, I'm still juggling everything and trying to get better at just dealing with me, my personal stuff. But it hit, gosh, probably about 3 years ago. I think about 3 years ago or so is when I suddenly realized that I had not experienced the actual like physiological feeling of happiness and joy in probably a year. It
Wow.
just didn't exist. Like there wasn't a moment in the year prior where I could think, oh yeah, I was really happy, or I was really appreciative, or I was really excited. I was just flat. There was nothing. There was very little emotion, and if there was emotion, it was because I was faking it. Um, And so I thought, this is a real problem. Like, I got to really start paying attention here. I don't think I'm experiencing happiness, like the actual feeling of happiness. And I don't know when the last time I was feeling happy. So I sort of let life play out and I kept doing my thing. And um, as I started to realize, oh no, yeah, this is a real problem. It's not happening. Another year had gone by and I just never experienced joy or happiness. And I thought, man, it's time to look into this. Just trying to figure out what's going on. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life. Like, could I maintain? Could I continue to be that way forever? Sure. Would I be a great dad? No. Because I was home but not here. Could I be a great husband? No. I wasn't really showing up as a partner. Um, and I needed to start to get to sort of I guess the root of what was causing all that. And so I started this more in-depth exploration of my own emotions, which as an introvert and as a very private person, I never thought I'd ever spend any time on any of that. I wasn't going to look into my feelings and my emotions. I was more of that type of like, stuff happens. It happens to everybody. Move on. Like, just push it aside. But occasionally maybe you push too much aside and there's no more room wherever you were pushing it aside to. Now it's flowing in front of you, you're tripping over it. And so I started tripping over it pretty good. And we talked a little bit offline how before we started this second session, how that inability to experience happiness was probably rooted in my own inability to love myself. Right, like I started to realize, like, damn, I think that's the source of it. I don't think I actually really love or appreciate anything that I do. So how am I going to love anybody else or appreciate anything else in my life? Like, I don't even look at myself with any sort of um, appreciation or um, like happiness. I just exist, right? Like, and everything I did was never good enough. It was always on to the next thing. when we had one of those guest speakers come out for the mental health side of things, Cody Alford came out and he was telling a story and he was talking about some of his accomplishments and realizing how proud he was of himself. And I had like a epiphany moment right there in the auditorium in Prescott, thinking, "Oh my goodness, I have never once said that to myself." Like all the things we just talked about, right? All the accomplishments with ALECA. I got a couple different side jobs that I do outside of ALECA. I do all the police work. I'm the trainer for our unit. All these great things, right? And not to mention my personal life. Like I have three amazing kids, incredible kids. Like so proud, wonderful family. The first half of this podcast was at Sunday dinner, where we get together every Sunday at mom's house, and the whole family gets together. My siblings, their kids, their wives and husbands, my mom, and like man, like great vacations, so much to be thankful for, and like all those accomplishments. And it was like, okay, yeah, yeah, but what's the next thing? Like, don't stop for a second to even appreciate what you just did, because if you do, your lazy ass probably will just stop there. So you better get to it. And where did that come from? I don't know. It was probably from that whole way I was brought up of like, hey, get after it, like stay after it, like never be satisfied, always keep going. And not really being the type to stop and pat yourself on the back either. So yeah, so I started digging a little deeper into my own personal story and kind of where this lack of happiness was coming from. And man, like after doing like an 8-day intensive like psychotherapy course, it's a place that was here local. Um, man, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about what your childhood, when you go through, how that affects you later on in life. Um, and yeah, learning about just that feeling of being unsafe from being a young kid, how that impacts you, and how that takes you to this place of being basically in survival mode. Like I was thinking about trying to survive since I was young. When I first saw my dad as the biggest threat in our household, I loved him. He was our protector, and he was also the biggest threat to the safety of me and my mother and my sister, because I didn't know psychologically how he'd be day to day. And with the violence that he showed, I thought, man, he could hurt us. Like he definitely could hurt us. And so it kind of put me in a place right off the bat in my youth that kind of stuck with me and formed who I was. And as we talked, probably made me a really good cop because I became hyper aware of everything that was going on around me and people's emotions and how to read people because I was reading him at a young age. Um, so it made me good at what I do in the sense that, and also the part we talked about, not getting stressed out, right? Not getting, because I'm operating so high in that stress level that I'm not really impacted when things are getting really intense. So I'm a good decision maker under stress because that was how I grew up. However, uh, that's not conducive to a good home life, as it turns out. When you come home and you're still staying up there, that's a problem. And I first thought like, yeah, I heard of this ego death, right? Like I need ego death. I need to kill my ego, right? Like I'm just got too much of it. And so I kind of showed up to the counseling place thinking that was my goal for the 8 days, was figure out how to do that. And stop operating at such a high intense survival fight or flight mode all the time. And they kind of stepped back like, we don't deal with a lot of cops here, because we were dealing with a lot with my childhood stuff, because it goes deeper than what I'm talking about. But we were dealing with some other stuff too there. And so we were getting into all that, and they were like, man, we'd love to help you with that, but we got to be careful because you're not done being a cop, and we can't kill your ego. We just need to help you learn how to regulate it. Like, how are you going to be able to turn it on and off, turn it up and turn it down? Like, that's what you need to learn how to do, because your ego is what allows you to run towards gunfire. Your ego is what tells you that you will win that fight and that you will be able to survive whatever this next big fight is. So if you kill that all the way, that might go away, and it takes away your livelihood. So, that's a work in progress. I have no answers. I have not figured that out yet, but I think I'm getting a little bit better at appreciating myself. I've taken time recently to actually be proud of accomplishments, and I try to take more time, especially in my role, to start stopping and recognizing successes, and other people that help. I think I was, people on the board watching this, the ALECA board may laugh and kind of maybe have something else to say about it, but I think I've done better in the past year or so at being appreciative of everybody else on the team, and being maybe a little easier to work with. I don't think my leadership style was great for those first 8 to 10 years. I think I held everybody to the standard that I held myself to, which was, yeah, 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 right, good, you did that thing, but we're not done. Next thing, let's go. Um, and there was never a whole lot of like, thank you, good work, like, nice job. Let me get you a plaque. Let me get you something. Let me send a letter to your chain of command about what an amazing job you did helping me implement this program or develop this new strategic plan that we're moving forward with. Like, these are things that we were doing that was like incredible work that really wasn't happening anywhere else in the country the way we're doing it. And minimal recognition because I didn't want recognition. So why would I give it to them? And so I hope that in the past year or so that that's been better, that they've recognized that I'm trying to do a better job of appreciating everybody and their hard work and creating new sort of programs that recognize not just our cops and our executive board, but also recognize citizens. We have so many great citizens that step up and help ALECA, and there's no reason why they have to. None. They're not cops. They're not related to cops. There's no reason they have to be involved in anything we're doing, but yet they have just a massive heart for this organization and want to be a part of it. And they work their butts off and they give time and they give money and they just want to see it succeed. Like, how do you not stop and like get those people the proper recognition and let the rest of the world know, like, this is what you should be doing with your time, either your time or your money. If you got one or the other or both, here's what you should be doing with it. It's giving to organizations and making the world a better place, making the world safer. You know, like, we're very proud of what we do. And so when we get support like that from people that don't have to do it, like, they deserve recognition. And so that's been part of my process, I guess, is my whole point of, uh, stopping to recognize others and then hopefully do a better job of appreciating my work, loving myself a little bit more. If I can love myself a little bit more, maybe it has a trickle down effect. Because, as we also spoke about before we actually went live, is like, I got that nasty F word. And I don't know, maybe some people will relate to this, that forgiveness word. Like, I just have no concept for it. I don't understand it. I've tried so hard to figure it out. Church has been the best thing that could have happened to me in the past year, is getting back closer to my religion and getting back closer to God and reading the Bible more often, because there's so much in there about forgiveness, right? The ultimate forgiver is God, right? Like, he forgiving us of all the things that we do. And I'm trying to understand that concept, but it's probably the biggest issue that affects me today in my personal life. And I carry that very high standard for people. And I put giant barriers up and walls up around people that are, trying to be close to me because, I felt there's some sort of perceived wrong that I just can't let go of. I'm always gonna, see you through that lens of how you wronged me that one time. It may not have even been that bad, but yeah, that's a problem. And that's what I'm still working through. So if we ever do this again in the near future, I hope I have an answer. I've figured out how to forgive.
Yeah, there's so much you said there that's worth reiterating. But I think the main one, man, is that you didn't just have to strip everything back and start from the beginning. You didn't have to leave your job. Like, you don't have to leave a job, write a book, go on a podcast, start doing motivational speaking or whatever. You can just go and fix those little bits, have a look at it,
Yeah.
have an appreciation for who and what you are, and then, yeah, it's painful and it's annoying. Like you said, it'll make you squirm when it's a bit uncomfortable. But once you go through it and you've got a bit of a handle on it, it's like, what's the 12 steps? The first one is like, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. First one for
Yeah.
you maybe was like, fuck, I got a problem. And I don't want to have
Yeah.
this problem. so
Yeah.
so stare it in the face and look at it and then start to fucking work on it, man. But,
Yeah.
you're still living the life, dude. You've still got the family. You're still able to be here on the podcast and run ALECA, be a cop. Yeah, like, you don't have to just rip the whole thing down and start again. You just got to be like, oh, fuck, man, a little 10%, and I've got to change, That's
I
the
tell you,
one
man.
thing.
Yeah, it seemed close a few times too. It seemed close. Like, I remember being in that 8-day intensive course, and one of the guys who's like the head counselor there, right? And this is a world-renowned facility that's here in Scottsdale, and tons of love for them. It was a great course. I learned a ton. But the guy came in. He's like the lead counselor there. His dad started the whole thing, and he's like considered like kind of like the guru. So you only see him once, right? You see like probably 8 to 10 other counselors through the whole week, and they're a great team working on your case, and you learn a lot. But this guy comes in once and spends some time with you, and he'll talk to you about some of the stuff you've been working on. And this MFer comes in and looks at me, and I think I'm doing great and making some progress and finding a little bit of success. And he looks at me like, no, you haven't even come close to rock bottom. You're going to have to go way deeper and you're going to have to fall apart way more. He said, you're not even close. And I was so upset leaving that session, thinking, this man doesn't know me. He doesn't know a damn thing about me. He doesn't know what I'm capable of, how much I can handle, how much I can juggle. And my ego, there it was again, just taking over and saying, no, he doesn't know. He doesn't know what I'm capable of. I can get through this without falling apart. I can get through this without losing my family and my job and everything. And so I somewhat felt determined to prove him wrong, while at the same time wondering on multiple occasions, like, is he right? Maybe he was right. Like maybe I do need to just completely just crumble, drop all the balls, right? Leave ALECA, take a leave of absence, or retire completely. I can retire now from the department. Do I need to quit all my side hustles, my two other jobs, my two other businesses that I operate? Like maybe I just let it all go, right? And just figure myself out and try to find this happiness that's so elusive. Um, but then I keep thinking back to him and that smugness. I'm like, no, 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 come on. Like there's still a way to pull this off, right? You can still maintain, you can still be Tony. You can still be this guy that people have relied on, that people trust. This hardworking guy that everyone knows, and not completely crumble, not let it all fall apart. And stay tuned. I don't know. I think I still can. I'm still adding more to my plate. And so I'm hoping I can still pull it off the way I want to, which is not do that full fall apart. But some people say that that's necessary, that you have to. And for those that have gone through that, all respect. I know that's something similar to what you dealt with. And I don't know if you'd be where you are now had you not gone that route of just kind of letting it all fall apart.
Do you think he was deliberate about that? Do you think he was not manipulating you, but do you think he was being very calculated in what he said, or do you think that was his honest opinion and assessment of you?
It was his honest opinion. I think there was something about me in the minute and a half that I spoke to him, because it was in a group setting,
Oh,
but it was, I don't even remember the whole context of what we were trying to present to him. Maybe it was just a progress report of how we felt so far and what we've done and what we've accomplished and what's been the best part. That might have been all it was. And I was pretty hopeful because I was on like day 3, I think. And I was like feeling like, yeah, I'm learning a lot. I think I'm going to be okay here. And he crushed that. No, you're not. Not even close. Like you haven't even come close. He just looked at me, kind of examined how I was talking. Seemed like he was reading my body language. Maybe he had read my case file prior to and knew some of the stuff that was in my background. And he said, no, no, you got a long way to go. You're still going to fall all apart. You got to fall all apart still. And I said, you mother lover. Yeah.
can I give you my assessment, my professional assessment?
Yeah, please. Yeah. Yeah. I'd rather get it from you than him, I think.
Dude, so like I don't think a lot of mental health professionals have all the answers. Maybe they're very book learned. I think you've got to find the good one, you've got to find the right one for you. So I don't think that guy's assessment of you is correct. I don't think broadly it's correct either because like let's just say right, everything fell apart for you. Lost a leaker, lost your job as a cop, lost your side hustle, lost your family, and then you built yourself back up. What the fuck would you do? Would you want to go back? Would you still want to be a cop? Would you still want to run a leak up? Would you still want to have your side hustle? Would you still want your family? I think the answer is yes, 100%. So for me, I'm like, the goal is not to sit in a fucking white starched room with your fingers pinched together going, all day and just finding inner peace. That's the most boring, fucking useless thing. Like, I don't think that's realistic. I don't think you should aim for that. I think you should aim for real life. And if in your real life you've got a leaker, you've got your family, you've got the cops and your side hustle, then fucking just keep doing that. But the other part is people like us are able to tolerate a lot of pain. So I don't think that you need it to fall apart, but I think typically it does. Because we can handle so much pain, it gets to such a state and we can handle it for so long that by the time we go, I know that really hurts, it's like things have fallen apart. So for someone like us to go early and say, hey man, I think I need to change some things, why would you go through the more painful part of ruining your fucking life if you just kind of, you're going to end up in the same place anyway?
Yeah.
My opinion is you only got to change 10%. Otherwise, what's the point? What do you do in life? Everyone's like, your job's not your identity. I'm like, well, it kind of is to a degree, like it doesn't have to be all of it, but it's still part of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I disagree wholeheartedly. You don't have to have your whole life fall apart. But inversely, you'll choose your own rock bottom, right? I've forgotten where
Yeah.
that saying comes from. It's not mine, but you'll choose it, right?
See, and I love that too, because that's a guy who's already been through it, a guy who I trust, and I call a friend who's saying kind of what I believe too, which is, I catch it early enough that I don't have to do like this guy thinks, where I got to go through hitting rock bottom, and it's way deeper than I've already been, and it's way worse and darker. Like that's the message he was giving. I kind of reject that. I want to reject that, thinking, no, I recognize my problem early on, and I started a heartfelt, hard search for answers. Like I've been putting in the work, and it's because I don't want to just sit in this feeling. I want to be better. And so, yeah, I'm putting in the work. And so, do I need to go deeper? Do I need to go darker? Need to go more broken? I hope not. I don't think so. I think I can still kind of salvage what I have and start my upward trajectory without going further down. I really believe it.
100%. I mean, what do you want your kids to say? Like, hey, my dad still lives in my house and he loves me and we had a great childhood. Do you want them to be like, oh yeah, dad left when I was a kid, but he found inner peace in the desert in Arizona. Like, you know what
Yeah,
I
it
mean?
doesn't
Like,
fly.
we're
Yeah.
not individuals, man. We're a communal
Yeah.
fucking species. We have to be with other
Yeah.
people. So yeah, I
No.
don't know, man.
Yeah.
Maybe in the next life we'll find a different kind of inner peace, but I don't think that's realistic. The other thing that I don't like about that is you said it yourself. You were like, I was sitting here all hopeful and I've just done all this work and I feel really great. You can't take hope away from someone.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, Tony, you're going to get better. Oh, that's hope. Oh, that's fucking awesome. Tony, you are not even fucking close. Your whole life
No.
is going to fall apart before you even start. Oh, that's pretty fucked.
Yeah, I felt pretty shitty that day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And beyond. And beyond.
Dude, props to you, man, for like
Yeah.
being like, yeah, cool story, champ. I'm gonna keep going and keep my family and my job and ALECA and my side hustle and be
Yeah.
propelled to stardom by the Warriors and Wardens podcast.
Oh, you better believe too, if I pull this shit off, I'm gonna go find him. Like, oh, I was gonna get worse off, huh? I was gonna get darker, it was gonna crash, all come crashing down. Like, yeah, look, yeah, I guess you were wrong, smart guy. Mr. PhD.
Yeah, if you're so smart, why is he dead?
No, I won't be so petty. I wouldn't do that. I would just go on and be happy that things worked out good. But yeah, I do think about that moment. I do think about his words. And I question myself sometimes, but no, I think I'm right. I think your assessment is also right that no, you can catch things early, and if you're motivated enough, you can really work hard to get better before getting worse.
Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah.
You know?
So, dude, Tony, we'll wrap it up there, man. But I got three questions that I want to ask guests going
Yeah.
forward. So, first one, dude, is what's some advice, man, that you'd either give to the young Tony, at the beginning of your career, or anyone else who's starting out in this kind of career? What's the best bit of advice you got?
Ooh, starting out. I mean, the best advice I got starting out in this career was set your reputation early. Set your reputation, or your reputation follows you for the rest of your career. It will impact everywhere you want to go. This is such a cool job. It is such a fun job. And you could do it for 20 to 25 years and have a blast. But if you don't set that reputation, you're going to hit roadblocks and you're going to get frustrated and you're going to think that, everyone's out to get you and you can never get ahead. And you become this salty kind of negative, because every agency has them. They have cops running around that are just in this negative place. Career didn't go the way they wanted, and they're just nasty, negative people. don't become that guy, right? Like, set your reputation early, fall in love with what you do, realize how much good you're doing for the world and how important your job is, so that you're happy and proud to put on your uniform every day and go to work. You get out and hustle, like, learn how to do your job well, and then go do it. Like, it's an opportunity like none other in the world. It is such an honor to be able to wear the uniform and to be able to represent our state and the best of our community, and look at it that way. Like, I'm supposed to represent what's the best of our community, and protect and take care of people. Like, it's an honor. Like, you should look at it that way. And if you do, you're probably gonna have a lot of success early in your career, and then people are gonna know you as that person. And so when you start putting in for assignments, when you want to go to detectives, when you want to go to narcotics unit, when you want to go to Canine, when you want to go do SWAT, like, they'll know your name and you'll get that opportunity. And then your career will just continue to take off and move whatever direction you want to go. I got to say, like, sitting here now, I know I'm, 22 years on, 17, 16, 17 years in Canine. Like, I've actually, I was never turned away from anything I wanted to do. My career path has been exactly what I wanted it to be. Not one thing hasn't worked out. But early on, I got good advice, like, set your reputation early. Like, prove that you're that guy, that you love doing it, and you're a worker, you're a hustler. Like, that was one of the great things instilled by my father with all his complications. But and I instilled it in my kids. Like, the one thing you control is how much effort you put in, and no one can out hustle you. Like, if you're going after something, no one can outwork you. You can always outwork somebody else. And so I think I've really kind of lived that life, lived that motto, and certainly my kids do too.
Yeah, that's perfect, bro. And yeah, I guess you almost answered it in that one, but like, what does your service mean to you, bro? What does having served mean to you?
Oh man, yeah, that's been, yeah. Now that I'm over that 20-year mark, and everything here seems to be like focused, like, our whole unit is up there in years, and so we sit around now on Wednesdays. We've been the same group for a very long time, and we sit together on Wednesday nights when we train. The whole unit gets together for training once a week, and so those Wednesday nights now, like, the conversations used to be like, uh, you know, what cool, like, hobby we picked up. We're playing sports. We're doing something athletic. We're buying new toys. We're, going after new, like, overtime gigs so we can buy a bigger house. Like, all this, like, upward trajectory stuff. Now our conversations for the past couple of years, we sit around and talk about portfolios and which stocks are hitting, which Bitcoin you should, which crypto you should buy. Like, you got to set yourself up for retirement. We got to be ready to, like, wind it down. Talking about injuries like nonstop. So yeah, so we all are very honored for what we've done. So trying to get back in a roundabout way to the question you asked, like, um, yeah, it's been an honor to do the job. But now that I'm in this place of kind of like looking more retrospective over my career, um, yeah, just so much appreciation for the opportunities I've had, and even through the bad stuff, right? Even through the traumatic stuff, like, to be able to have, because I always just wanted to do something they would impact and have meaning, have purpose, right? I didn't want to have a job that, I didn't know what I accomplished that day at the end of the day. I don't think there's ever been a time where I haven't come home and thought, yeah, I did something today. Like, I did something to impact the world. It may have been just because when I grabbed a coffee in the morning, I stopped and talked to somebody for 15 minutes about police work or answered a question for them. And that moment may have been like so special to that one person that it impacted. It was positive. Like, I'll take it. I'll take that moment. Or I could have done, the big call where we were literally dragging people from buildings and saving lives. Either way, I had an impact that day, and I think every day. So, and I love that feeling. And I think anybody that feels this job is their calling, it's probably what they're after.
Yeah, perfect, man. That's a perfect answer to that contribution, dude. It's so important. Did I matter today? Did I make a contribution?
Yeah.
And last question, bro. Who are you outside your service, Tony?
Oh, dad. I'm dad. Yeah. That's the best. They're, as I said, I got three great kids, a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 10-year-old, girl, boy, girl. And all of them super hard workers, incredibly polite. I mean, we go out to dinner sometimes, and we've had families at other tables pay for our meal because they've never seen such a well mannered, respectful family sitting at a table. I mean, it happens with old couples typically. They'll see it and they'll go, "We just had to. Like we were watching you guys, and like, man, it's so impressive. It makes me so proud, you know." Um, and that's the big thing for me is watching them um, live life and grow and learn and turn out to be so good. Like that's my number one, you know. So I love that. You know, not that I don't have hobbies. I love to exercise. I love to hike. We got a cabin up north in the woods, a family cabin. Get there every single chance I get because it's in the tall pines and it's got mountains around it and it's a giant lake right off the back porch. And you just sit there and it's like going to another world, you know, and the kids love it and they've made incredible memories there. And, you know, in the summertime out here, it's let's go to the lake in between kids' sports and we'll go take the boat out and go play on the lake all day. So, yeah, get outdoors, get fresh air, play with the kids, give them great memories throughout their whole childhood so they're better than their dad and they're well adjusted adults going into their more stressful years as adults, you know. So yeah, that's me.
Mate, it's about as good an answer as you're going to get, eh? I like that, dude. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Tony, mate, I've had a fucking blast chatting with you, man. You've, like I was joking when the power cut off and I was sending you voicemail, you're like my poster child, dude, for everything I talk about in my
Oh,
talks and this new workshop and stuff I got going on. So, yeah, man, dude, I appreciate you so much, Tony. And bro, thank you, man, for coming on, dude.
no, Tom, I love you, man. Like I really appreciate your friendship and from the moment we got introduced to each other, like I could just tell you were that guy. Your intentions are always so positive and you're so attentive when you talk to people and you can see that there's like that true interest in the person you're talking to and that has become such a rare thing. So kudos to you because it carries through to your podcast and how you're doing your business here. And it's been a pleasure to be able to talk with you and answer your questions and I'll do it anytime.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much, Tony. All right, everyone listening at home, catch you later. See you for the next episode. Thanks for listening to that episode. We've got more episodes on the way. In the meantime, check out warriorsandwardens.com for keynote speaking or workshops for operational readiness and longevity in military or first responder teams using emotional well-being and sharing lived experience. I'm your host, Tom Brown. See you next time.